Hello, welcome to this mini course that I've assembled from a number of different material that I've been working with at Pixel Haze Academy over recent years. If you're intrigued by web design and are thinking about it for a career, or if you're trying to use a website builder and you're struggling to make your website look professional, here's the place to start. This mini course assembles content from our YouTube channel, our paid courses on Udemy, our premium content from our Moonshot Become a Web Designer program, and feedback and tips that I picked up in 20 years in the web design industry. There's a lot to cover in this session, but the way I've tried to break it down chapter by chapter is so you can select the parts of this course that you want to run through first. Or if you wanted a recommended running order, just click it to play in the background and watch and work along at your pace. If you want more structure around it, then I'd recommend signing up for our free membership at pixelhaze.academy, and via that membership, you can access this course plus additional takeaway notes as and when I can add them to the platform. I'm going to be building the remainder of this course, including support materials, for the remainder of 2024. I truly hope it helps you like it's helped me and many of my clients and students in the past. Let's crack on. Welcome to our Web Design Beginners course. My name's Elwyn Davis. I am a web design specialist and instructor with over 20 years in the industry. I've built websites for small businesses, solopreneurs, through to blue chip multinationals, working on projects well over £100,000. Today I focus on training the next generation of web designers through Pixel Haze Academy, and I'd like to share with you some of the key points that we're going to be covering in this Web Design Beginners course. First of all, I'm going to tell you what it isn't. This isn't a step-by-step guide in terms of how you can build a website using HTML, CSS, or maybe a website builder. I do have a live project for a fictional company, and I'll be taking you through the key steps, but this is so we can see a top-down view, the theory of web design, as opposed to delving in too deep with the production. The reason for this is because you can choose your own path. Whether you want to go down the development route, or whether you want to go into front-end development, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or whether you want to leverage a website builder and choose a no-code route into web design. There's so many options available now. That does mean that there's increased competition, but hopefully this course will help you find your own niche, not just in your audience, but in your techniques, processes, and leverage to create a successful website, which means happy clients, finished projects, and potentially referrals for new work as well. So what are we going to cover in this course? We've got dedicated chapters on the state of the nation in 2023, what is web design now, and what are the pathways available to you, and I will be delving into some of the examples I've already mentioned in this intro. We're going to be comparing traditional web design practices with website builders, focusing on Squarespace, but it really doesn't matter whether you choose Squarespace, Wix, EditorX, or even WordPress. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Then we bring on to something that's very close to home for me, the website blueprint. This is a planning process that's taken me nearly 20 years in the making to really refine the early steps of the web design project, meaning that we overcome obstacles later in the project. For example, you wouldn't build a house without a blueprint or plans, or at least I wouldn't recommend it. And the same with web design. We need to plan for a successful project, and planning reduces the risk of the project falling apart. Believe me, I know from experience. So this will take you through all the key steps in terms of how to wireframe a website for small businesses. It's really quick, really effective. The bullet point brief, how we can leverage AI to create a web design brief in under an hour with clients participating in that process. Then I'm going to give you a demo of how I carry all of this planning procedure and put it into action. So I need to put my money where my mouth is and demonstrate how I build websites using Squarespace in this case. As I said, you can choose your own platform. We'll also brush upon mobile and responsive design and why that's so important in this day and age, and how, again, using Squarespace, we can easily adjust our desktop layouts to mobile view as well. We'll also brush upon some of the other aspects, like how you can sell web design and how you can get customers in through the door from week one. This is just a starting point. I'll be building up this course over the coming months and years. As with all of our other mini courses, we look to expand and develop and continually improve our content. So even if you're just starting out now, do come back to us in a few months' time, as we'll probably have additional content to share with you on this topic. Just over 2 years ago, I started coaching people to build their own websites online. This was off the back of creating courses through Udemy. Going back further, I've built over 3,000 websites on our own platforms, agencies that I ran, and more recently, in the last 10 years, building websites on Squarespace. The one thing I didn't realize when going into coaching was just how wrong I would get it. My background is coaching web designers. And when I start coaching designers, even though they don't start off with a level playing field, depending on their experience, their background, and potentially whether they've got a degree or not, there's usually a solid foundation. They understand principles of design, have a solid understanding of what makes a strong layout. So my focus was always to bring it up a level, turn them from solid designers into designers that would be better than me. And thankfully, most designers I've coached have ended up being better than myself. So when switching to helping people build their first website, or transition into web design from marketing backgrounds, for example, I've found that an interesting challenge, namely because I didn't realize how diverse the starting point was. So today, I've created a diagram based on the information I've gathered over the past couple of years, and I put it all together in which I suppose we can say is a tribute to the London Underground. Each type of individual I've coached have got a different hopping on point and also potentially a different exit point. Not everyone who learns how to build a professional looking Squarespace website will want to become the best Squarespace designer in the world. However, at the other end of the spectrum, someone could be hopping on already being an experienced designer and good at their job, but want to take it to the next level. Maybe they want to improve their quoting, to have a better understanding of the technical aspects in getting a website live, like handling scary domain names. With that diversity of the audience that I've been coaching, I need to put together a program where it's very clear from day one what the objectives are, but also the likelihood of achievement and the length of the journey for each individual to their dream outcome. Alas, I haven't cracked it yet, but I'm hoping this diagram will make a big difference. And before we hop over, if you feel this helps you, we are running 2 communities over on SKOOL, one all around website builders and how you can become more technically proficient in building websites on those platforms. But also we've got a private group where I can coach students on a weekly basis, where we have 2 live sessions per week on Zoom, and I will coach them through all of the different aspects and challenges to get them to the next destination in their journey. It doesn't matter whether the student's starting from scratch or whether they're hopping on as a seasoned graphic designer. The massive eye-opener I've had since I launched my SKOOL communities is that I was expecting to be helping other people and using SKOOL as a platform for that. But the one thing I hadn't realized is just how much I've learned about tweaking my communication and building a community by being a member of SKOOL. I truly think they've got something special going on over there, and I'm excited to be along for the ride. But you're not here for that, so let's have a look at this diagram and see if we can decide where your starting point is. Let's crack on. I'm back on my trusty chalkboard, and today we've got a rather crude version of the London Underground. But this model just works really well visually, and I've created a digital version of this, just in case this is straining your eyes a little bit, but this will just help me kind of walk us through it. So I'll switch between this version and the on-screen version as well. This is the journey with hop-on and hop-off points for our creatives, designers, and business owners. We'll start off with the complete novice. This is someone potentially moving into web design from a different career. We affectionately call this demographic as career change Colin. Colin maybe has had a background in the corporate sector, wants a complete change of life, wants to get work-life balance back, maybe work from home and do something creative. Colin will join us from day one. And the challenge we've got with Colin is making sure we can start off on a pace that works for him. Because even our novices will start with different levels of technical proficiency. Generally, they will be able to find their way around a computer, may have a laptop or device that they can start building websites on from day one. There's certainly no requirement anymore to have a high-end Mac or even a gaming PC to build professional-looking websites, simply because the websites that we build are all built within the browser. Of course, we use Adobe Creative Cloud to work on our photos. That's where we bring in AI tools, and the AI tools in Photoshop are phenomenal. But this is an optional extra when we really start getting under the skin of web design projects. So most of the time, what we're after is a reliable computer for Colin, plus then an up-to-date browser, so he can create his first Hostinger account or set up a free trial with Squarespace. He can build his first free websites, and the moment they go live on Squarespace, he becomes a Circle member. And then there's another avenue for him to do some extra background research whilst he's working through the content that we set. Career Change Colin is someone I've started working with over the past 12 to 18 months. Then we've got the DIY crowd. So the DIY Squarespace designer, for example, is Career Change Colin 6 months ago. Maybe start to dabble with website builders, needing one for their own business, intrigued about building websites professionally, and they've just started out by having a place. So they've got an understanding of how Wix or Squarespace or Hostinger or even WordPress will work. But at this stage, they're probably still making those schoolboy design errors, which are understandable because it's a brand new career to them. That's where we can jump in and help to mitigate the risks and reduce the problems one at a time to make sure that those projects run smoother. Again, whether it's for their own project or whether it's for someone else. Then as we move along the line, we've got digital marketer. The digital marketer has a really strong, broad understanding of digital marketing, maybe copywriting and prepping content for the website. So the challenges for our digital marketers is usually understanding of design principles for web, of course, then understanding and learning the website builder software so that they can apply their own skill set and provide a wider range of services for their clients. Likewise, you can have digital marketers who only work for one company. As a result, they can increase their profile within that company and their value to them by adding a new skill set into the mix. Maybe they don't even want to design the website and they work alongside a designer, but at the same time want to be part of a community so they can continue to develop the website so it doesn't need quite so substantial upgrades in the future. By future-proofing the website, they're making themselves more valuable to their employers. And likewise, it works the same for freelance digital marketers who are looking to collaborate with professional designers or take on that skill set themselves. I've added this one in. We haven't worked with many, but every now and again you have someone moving across from IT. And there's always been the issue, especially locally in Mid Wales, where someone will ask, what do? I say, I help people to get their website live and over the line. And the response will be, oh, so you do IT. No, it couldn't be further from the truth. We use the technology as a tool to an end, but I'm certainly no IT expert. I suppose I'm an enthusiast from having to problem solve on the fly. But there is a relatively natural transition from IT into web design, and there have been many micro IT companies who have offered web design as a service. That's the audience that I can help to make their websites more polished, more resilient in future, and more valuable to their existing clients so that they can package managing the website alongside managing the systems within their offices, Office 365 subscriptions, etc. Next along, graphic designer. This one's pretty clear. This is someone with a skill set and a strong background in graphic design. We call this demographic Freelance Fiona. And Freelance Fiona is really accomplished with what she already knows, but has shied away from web design as a service because of the technical aspects and not wanting to take on something new when she already has a relatively big schedule. The challenge Fiona faces is that the demand for graphic design is getting less and less, and that's with tools like Canva making it more flexible, easier for companies to create their own graphic design. There will always be demand for professional graphic designers because even with AI tools to speed things along, most people don't have the knowledge to do something for themselves. And especially if you've got busy businesses, they all want to outsource that to a professional. But there's certainly nothing wrong with Fiona adding a new tool into her toolkit. And that could be building websites using website builders, which isn't so much of a leap from her current role as a designer, but just several small baby steps along the way. And that's, again, where we come in, and that's where we can coach as well. Moving along, developer. And the reason I put developer slightly further on from graphic designer is because they usually have a better understanding of things like handling domains, are more comfortable with admin systems, and can also write and prepare custom code. Usually the challenges here is how to get that design eye across on developer-driven projects. Developers will often lean towards something like WordPress simply because there are preset templates, and they will squeeze their customers' content into one of those pre-existing templates and then rely on their coding skill set for any adjustments or any new features. But with most requirements from the clients that I've worked with, over 3,000 of them, they don't tend to need a high-end developer skill set. It's usually predominantly web design with a little bit of custom code as well, just to make that website look bespoke and unique. And bringing it on the line, we've got a web designer who is still classified in my experience as a beginner, maybe beginner to intermediate, where they've built between 10 and 75 professional websites. So they've got 10 projects under their belt. They feel comfortable doing most of their work, maybe 90% of the work they are fully comfortable and can just research those extra bits along the way. But then when something goes wrong, that's where this web designer is most at risk. They're probably charging enough at that point for the customer to put their trust in them to resolve the problems. However, they're not yet experienced enough to have seen all of these things many times before. And that brings us on to the web designer of 75 websites plus. That's not a set figure. It really depends on the complexity and the diversity of the websites that the designers build. But I generally think that 75 is a good number to say, I know what I'm doing. There are very few things that will come along and surprise me. An opportunity for a web designer on 75 websites to 100 websites to still be involved in a community so that they can stretch their skill set. There's always a risk at this stage that you go into your comfort zone and your websites start to look a bit the same. So what we try to do for this type of designer when they join our communities is throw extra resources at them, maybe challenge them to stretch the designs, to try something a little bit different, take them out of their comfort zone without blowing up the project budget in the same time. The great thing about website builders is that you're 80% through the project before you even create an account. All of the systems are working behind the scenes. Fluid Engine makes it really easy to build websites quickly. And we've built a series of resources that are available to our communities, like SquareForge, which is a rapid template builder for Squarespace. And then as we get to the end, the old goat. This is someone who's built thousands of websites, or at least something like 400 or 500 websites, so that they are so comfortable building sites. What happens then is your knowledge becomes broad enough that even considerable changes to the industry, new features, new additions, they don't tend to scare you because you're still building websites regularly enough that you can adapt quickly. I'm kind of in that bracket. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest designer of all time, simply because I'm not designing day in, day out. I spend most of my time coaching other designers to become eventually better than myself. But there are very few projects. In fact, I can't think of one in the last 2 to 3 years where I have been stumped, because there's always a relatable story or project that I can latch on to say, I've already solved it here, so therefore this should be resolved really quickly. I also spend way too much time buying and researching plugins and software. And when you've seen hundreds and hundreds of different software platforms, you start to see patterns, a bit like seeing the Matrix. And so therefore, I can build websites almost in my sleep. And it's not to say that I'm wonderful and you should all bow down to me. That would be weird. But what I can say is experience of starting here, where I started building my very first website in 1996 on Microsoft Publisher. That's been a long journey for me from start to finish. However, the difference is if I was to draw my journey, it would be like this. By mapping this out, choosing your start point and helping you with baby steps along the way, depending on the level of complexity you require, we are hoping at Pixel Haze Community to take this, and actually what happens with most people who are less stubborn than me is they'll start off like this, and then that's where they will get a professional in to take over the project because it's too much hassle, too much frustration. What we are trying to do is to take that and make it far more of a straighter line from start to finish. So yes, this video has been a bit of a plug for our new communities. If you are looking to tighten up your websites, if you're looking to understand how you can create professional websites using website builders, and I promise you, you absolutely can, or if you're looking for additional support to coach you through your first or 100th website project, then it's worth giving Pixel Haze Community a try. It's taking over my life at the moment. I'm there every week, and we have live sessions where not only can I give you pointers for how to improve and become a better designer, I can also fix a lot of these problems on the spot, so you never ever get to that wall where you have to stop. I'm not promising a straight line across, but if you stick with us, I think I can smooth it out. So you've reached the conclusion that you want to become a website designer, and you're unsure as whether you should go down the traditional web design route, or you choose the newer no-code platforms or website builders, the likes of Squarespace, Wix, and potentially WordPress. This video is to hopefully help you see the woods from the trees and choose the correct path. We're going to be breaking down the pros and cons of the traditional or bespoke web design route and obviously website builders. I've tried to give you an unbiased view of the two. Full disclosure, I have had experience in both fields. I used to have an agency, and in many cases we'd have 10 team members working on an individual project. That was a different world to what I decided to do when I set up Pixel Haze, which was to try and avoid reinventing the wheel, to be able to bridge the gap between what an agency does, and my former agency would be in that bracket, with a price tag that wasn't the same as an agency. To do that, I really needed to reduce the amount of time I was taking on a case-by-case basis for the project. That's why I chose website builders, and the reason I chose Squarespace in particular was because of the design customization, the overall look and feel of the gorgeous templates, and the fact that I could add some custom code if I wanted to, and that brought us on to be able to deliver and code plugins at Pixel Haze Studio. That's enough of that. We will just want to get back to the topic in hand, and let's have a look at the breakdown between traditional web design and website builders. Let's crack on. So let's have a look at some of the advantages of traditional web design. Here are some of the key benefits of starting a web design career using traditional methods. To start off with, we have customization. With traditional web design, you can tailor every detail to fit your client's needs. You have complete control over every site element, from the layout to the functionality. And then we have performance and optimization. Optimizing website performance becomes easier when you have full control over the code. This leads to quicker loading times, a better user experience, and increased search engine optimization, or SEO. Website builders have closed the gap, so the average customer is unlikely to see the difference between the two. But if your client is in a highly competitive niche, then bespoke website development may well have the edge and be the best route to go. Unique designs. As a traditional website designer, you're not constrained by starter templates. This means that you can create truly unique designs that help your clients stand out from the crowd, one pixel at a time. And now for the limitations of traditional web design. Of course, traditional web design has numerous advantages, as we just covered. However, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't cover some of the limitations and downsides that you need to consider. To start off with, there's a steep learning curve. Mastering multiple coding languages is a requirement for traditional web design. This can be a daunting task for beginners. Do you have a clear grasp of HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, so on and so forth? If so, great, that will get you up to speed with front-end structure, but we still haven't covered responsive web design, UX, or user experience, database architecture and integration, SEO, and responsive web design. That is quite an exhausting list. The smaller the business is, the more we need to become ultimate generalists. Therefore, it can often be unrealistic to be expected to know all of the above to a professional standard. Becoming a web designer is far more nuanced now than it was in the 90s when I first caught the web design bug. It can be time-consuming. Crafting a website from scratch is labor-intensive and time-consuming. Forward-thinking agencies will have structures and processes, essentially a bespoke toolkit, allowing the developers and designers to shave hours off the website build process, even days in some cases. So if you're starting out with your own business in bespoke website development, you may want to consider this before going toe-to-toe with established agencies. They have such a head start on you, and the likelihood is they can outproduce you. So the only battleground that you could have an edge to start with is on price, and reducing price will often have negative consequences in the medium to long term. And the final negative point to consider is higher initial costs. When something's more time-consuming, it generally equates to higher startup costs that you either have to swallow up as a company or pass on to your clients. Custom-built websites often come with higher development costs, which is great if you can get your proposal approved, but this may make your services more difficult to sell from the outset. However, the investment can be worthwhile for more complex projects on a larger budget. Again, this is largely down to where you see your career going in the medium to long term. So hopefully that's given you an insight on the pros and cons of the traditional web design approach. Now let's have a look at constructing your career with website builders. Website builders are online platforms designed to make web design accessible to everyone, regardless of their technical skills. They offer a no-code, user-friendly approach with features such as a drag-and-drop functionality and pre-made templates. And here are some of the reasons why you might choose website builders like Squarespace to kickstart your web design career. Point number one, ease of use. You may have seen it, but website builders are advertised directly to consumers with zero experience in the web design field, boasting that they are easy to pick up, learn, and master. Now, the fact that this is a white lie. Website builders are indeed easy for us professional designers, but the platform can still be a minefield for novices. But this all plays into our hands. At Pixel Haze, we have successfully built and grown our studio based on promises that we can easily keep. We bridge the knowledge gap between novices and website builders, enabling our clients, small business owners in our case, to obtain agency-level service without the agency price tag. Website builders are made easy to use, meaning that we can recruit and train designers in a fraction of the time it would take to get a junior designer up to speed with the traditional web design practices. They can take the hard work out of creating a website by providing us with familiar tools, much like using a smartphone app. They come with ready-to-use customizable templates and a simple drag-and-drop system. Think of it like building with blocks. You pick up what you like, put it where you want, and in no time, you've got a site ready to go. Well, that's what it's like in theory anyway. The more you work with it, the more experienced you become, the more like that statement the process is. And the great thing about this, no coding is required. Another benefit, quick turnaround. With pre-made templates and drag and drop functionality, you can set up the website in a few hours or even minutes. This allows us at Pixel Haze to offer a rush, which is a 1 to 2 day turnaround service, allowing us to charge a surcharge whilst having a delighted client because we have successfully pulled them out of a hole. Website builders are also cost effective. Many builders like Squarespace offer affordable plans, making them a cost-effective solution for small businesses or personal projects. You can add your own design or consultancy costs, or think of imaginative ways of wrapping up this website builder fee into your monthly service plan, offering immense value within a straightforward offer, which then brings us nicely on to 24/7 support. As a small business owner, you are unlikely to be able to offer 24/7 support or any sort of bullish uptime guarantee. This is where platforms like Squarespace come in. They take all of the technical support and all of the heavy lifting from that perspective because they've got support teams of over 300 staff worldwide, meaning that you can orientate your client towards their service offering, their support system at the end of the project. It's up to you then whether you want to add your own services via an enhanced support plan or even a monthly retainer to supplement this. And now finally, the limitations with using website builders. They do offer a convenient solution, but they also have their limitations. And that first one is a limited amount of customization, although this is changing and improving as of late. But despite the wide variety of templates that are available to you, they may not perfectly fit every brand or purpose. If your client has a unique requirement, and especially if it's a bespoke development requirement, custom code, then the website builder may not be able to deliver this. You may need to use custom code or embed third-party applications to get the project over the line. The more third-party applications we embed into our sites, the more disjointed it's likely to feel. Also, that may increase the load time of our system. This all, again, really depends on the individual project. You might have potential performance issues. Some website builders generate bulky code. It's almost impossible to have the most streamlined code through a website builder because they're created to perform a number of functions. To efficiently code the software may mean that we need to leave code in place that isn't used on a case-by-case basis. For example, the JavaScript code is going to be bulkier on Squarespace than if you were to develop your website from scratch. There are ways we can streamline this by making our website more efficient. I'd just like to tell you that for smaller websites, this isn't usually a noticeable problem. It does mean we should factor this in when we're quoting for a project, especially larger projects where the website is critical to the running of the business. For example, large e-commerce stores. And finally, scaling concerns. As your client's business grows, you might find that the limitations of a website builder will mean that you need to shift to a more custom, robust solution. For example, Squarespace can comfortably handle 500 products in a store, but when we start creeping over 1,000 products, a bespoke solution may be the way to go. Bespoke generally means a much higher upfront fee, but this could actually save countless hours of admin time for large projects, especially a large e-commerce store where there may be a more efficient way of handling the inventory, for example. So hopefully that's given you a good broad breakdown of the differences between traditional web design methods and website builders. If you're going to work in an agency, you may want to cover your bases with both because you can offer a new insight with website builders that the agency doesn't have in-house, but also be able to handle HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Or at least if you can't write in those languages, you understand where they fit within the big picture. There is every chance that this video could be obsolete within 12 months to 2 years, not only because the industry moves so quickly, but we are at the dawn of AI in web design, and that will change everything. The AI website builders at the moment are nowhere near strong enough to compete with website builders or traditional web design methods, but I've already been able to start creating custom code in AI to use in website builders as well. And even in that isolated area, it's changed the conversation. My recommendation is try and get a broad understanding of everything, and then you can pick and choose where you specialize.
I am Elwyn Davis, and I am here to ask you a question. Is a creator not entitled the freedom to share and learn design secrets? No, says the agency owner. This knowledge comes at a price. No, says the consultant. It must be reserved for the experienced. No, says the competitor. These are our proprietary secrets. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose the campus. Welcome to a new society built for those bold of heart, thirsting for their first or 101st innovation. Welcome to a congregation where technology is unlocked and demystified, where trade secrets are freely shared. Welcome to your next community, and by the sweat of your brow, a place where your creativity and graft reaps rewards for you. We are Pixel Haze, and let's build great big things.
In this chapter, we're going to talk about the website blueprint. This is a process that I have crafted over 20 years and really refined and improved it as it's gone along. And I've delivered this process in colleges, universities, but most importantly, I've practiced it and it's part of our studio offering. In fact, it's integral to the offering. This sets us off on the right platform to make the tail end of our project so much easier to work on. Here's our foundation for website projects. Before we jump ahead with this chapter, I just wanted to notify you that we have a full course on the website blueprint where I take a lot more time going through a lot more detail in the planning processes and the intricacies of the process as well. Aptly called the website blueprint, it's available on Udemy and on the Pixel Haze Academy campus. I'd strongly recommend go and check it out if you're looking for a long-term career in web design. For the cost of the course, I think you're having a steal because these are the answers to all of the lessons that I've learned learning web design the hard way from 2005 until today. I'm also in the process of writing the website blueprint book, which will be a digital book, and it'll be available in the near future. So stick around for that. I will announce it here when it's ready. With the website blueprint, we generally look at our skyscraper. This has various levels, and if we start off with level 1, we're covering our bases. Then we have the website blueprint, our planning and a briefing process. Then we have the bullet point brief in at level 1. Level 2, we start building up to content prioritization. Then we create our sitemap. Then we take a little bit of time to learn about the 12 and now 24 column grid and how every modern website is built on that underlying structure. And we finally wrap up with wireframing, of which we can spend a bit of time. There are more than one chapters on wireframing due to the importance of that process in this very course. As with web design itself, think of this as a concertina effect. I have delivered the website blueprint for huge multinational projects earlier in my career. Now I tend to work more with solopreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses. We can scale up and down the detail that we run through with this process depending on our audience and obviously the size of the budget for our project. So let's start off with level 1, covering our bases. There's just a few things that I would recommend thinking about before even putting pen to paper and writing our bullet point brief. We need to be thinking about market trends, what our overheads are, and also looking at competitor analysis. None of this needs to be overly technical, and this is the type of information, if we're working with a client, we can glean from them relatively easily with a few straightforward questions. So what I tend to do when I'm sat in front of a client is I will ask them if I can record the conversation. I'll put Otter AI, which is a free speech-to-text transcribe tool. We will then have a chat where I'll ask a little bit of background of their business, what they feel they are the best in the world at or could be the best in the world at, where they feel their strengths are, also what they feel they need to achieve to get to where they want to go. Is it a case of gradual growth? Are they on a fast growth trajectory? Are they struggling because of outside factors and need to adjust and retarget? Usually there's a reason why they'll come to you for the website. Sometimes those reasons are the website's looking out of date and their competitors had a new website and they need to keep up with the Joneses. We don't judge. There's no problem with any one of those reasons. But understanding the reason of why they need the website will often give us more answers as to how their business is run, how their brand is perceived within their industry, also maybe in their local area as well. All of this information is really important. For larger projects, we may be chatting for over an hour about their business, and I find that generally fascinating, so that I can absorb as much information as possible, and trying to be the best sponge I can be before I start providing ideas. It's that golden ratio of 2 ears, 1 mouth. I'm constantly trying to make sure I take in all of that information before I come up with suggestions. The longer we can hold back on coming up with suggestions of how it could all improve, the more dynamite we have to use. If you don't believe that your initial meeting with a client is all about influence and exerting influence, then you're probably a little naive with it. We're not talking about manipulating our client. What we suppose is trying to coerce them to what we feel is the right pathway for their business based on what they've told us. So the more they tell us about their business, the more we can help with that. This is not digging our heels in because we feel that this is definitely not digging our heels in and forcibly saying that our idea is the only one that's going to work. But ultimately, we are judged on results. So if we can just maneuver a conversation to give us the best chance of success, that's what we do. And the more experience you get, the easier that part is. So we need to understand where their market's moving, what their core overheads are. For example, is this website going to be a huge chunk of their overall spend for the year? Is it going to be a small part of their marketing spend, of which we can consciously come up with ideas about providing regular ongoing services for them to supplement the new website? And when I talk about competitor analysis, I don't mean going through their website with a fine-tooth comb. And one of the mistakes that designers often make is they will see the client's existing website or their competitor's website as the benchmark of what they need to improve. And it's very easy to fall into the mindset of their competitors' websites are terrible. We can easily improve on those and we're going to look great. And then we're mystified when a client is upset because we haven't done one aspect of the website they were looking for. I've been in that situation more so earlier in my career, and it's really frustrating when you just want to go back to them and saying, yes, but your existing website and your competitors' websites all look terrible, and yet we won't go into more detail on that, but you'll probably be in that position at least once in your career. And what I'd recommend is we just kind of move past that. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And that's our approach here, is just trying to maneuver the future direction of the project into a win-win environment. Onto the bullet point brief. And keeping it brief is the aim of the game here. So these are the areas that we need to cover. And I've got a demonstration showing exactly how we can use ChatGPT and AI tools to really rapid prototype this approach. We can also use Otter, as I mentioned earlier, to basically ask our clients this question. And then from that transcript, we can feed in this structure to be able to get a formal brief in under an hour. First of all, we need to find the background of the company, the audience, so who their customers are and where they are and what their habits are as well. Their edge, unique selling points, where they can carve out their space in the market and where they can stand out from the competition. I love the series Mad Men, partly because of the marketing pitches and all the creative elements in that series. And the one thing the main protagonist or anti-hero Don Draper would say is, if you don't like the direction that it's going, change the subject. And when we're talking about USPs, we can build our own offers, our own packages that set us apart from the rest instead of just solely focusing on price. And as designers, when we're working with small businesses, we can have a huge amount of influence here, because whilst our clients generally are experts in their individual field, they may not have expertise how to effectively communicate that in the best possible way and how they could package up what they do now in a way that resonates with their audience. I'd strongly recommend heading over to YouTube and checking out a load of videos from Alex and Mosey, because I feel that he's the best in the business at repackaging what you do on a day-by-day basis into an emotional sell. His book, $100 Million Offers, is packed full of great tips in how you can sell products and services. And as web designers, we can learn an awful lot there in terms of how we can design key landing pages and key pages on our site. So when we're looking at background, this is not War and Peace. This is just a little bit of information about the business. And that's where I'd recommend starting, especially if we're recording the conversation. We might find that our client might lock up a little bit if they're not comfortable with that. So what we do is we just prompt a little bit more to start with. We can ask maybe a few questions about the background. Instead of saying, tell me about your business, could you just answer these questions to start with to warm us up? What is the business? Who owns the business? When was it formed? Has it won any awards or any accreditations? How is it seen in the industry by your customers? You get it. We can ask those questions and warm our client up so that they feel more at ease in answering the following questions. And then we can tell our story with the 5 W's and a H. Who, what, why, where, when, and how. Who your customers are, but also who the business is. So who your client is and who their customers are as well. What your client offers. Why, which can be both the culture of the business, which then means why, which then translates usually to why would someone buy from you? Why do your best customers purchase from you? And you'll often find those are two intrinsically linked. Where? Is it a physical location? Is it online? Is it a hybrid of the two? And also when? Office hours? Can I buy instantly online? When are sales going up? Etc. Finally, the how. That's the call to action. How can I buy? How can I get in touch? How can I add myself to the mailing list? If we can answer all of these questions, and I recommend you have these in the back of your mind when designing your websites, it will make your job oh so easier. So I've got a quick example here for Edge, or our USPs. And the question here is, what sets you apart from your competitors? So when it comes to sharpening our edge, I've used Whole Foods as an example, which the USP is pretty bland. The quality of our products is second to none. Everyone says that. And even the rewritten USP isn't the most imaginative. I deliberately chose something that I felt was everyday, because when we're working with clients, we don't always get that creative freedom that we can go with really on the edge, pun intended, marketing campaigns. Often reassurance is what they want, and they want to blend in with the competition, just providing the best offering within the same market, as opposed to appearing so good that they actually jump out of that market. Subtle differences, but the rewritten version here is more relatable. The higher standards weren't available, so we created. Really good example there of how you can just use everyday speak to get your USP message across to your audience. Delivery. We need to understand what our website KPIs are. It's just a fancy acronym for key performance indicators. So what metrics are we going to use to measure the performance of our website? It could be number of visitors. It could be the number of inquiry forms filled out. It could be the average order value for individual customers. It could be customer retention or increase in number of customers where the website is integral to that. What's really important is these need to be measurable. So when we go on to measure them, then we can develop a simple system. And the question I'll often ask a client during this planning session is, if we were to review the website in 12 months' time, what do we need to have achieved for you to say that it was incredibly good value? We don't want it to break even. We want to know what makes it incredibly good value. If that customer feels it's amazing value, they won't be able to help themselves. They will tell a load of other people as well, which will do our own marketing work for us, because surely the best way of getting more customers is through existing happy customers. It's much easier, and I think it puts you in a happier disposition knowing you're delivering a great product. Prioritize content. You need to ruthlessly strip away information that's not needed and make sure that we are zoning in on the key messages. Visitors to websites that we design don't tend to have a huge amount of time, so we need to make sure we're ruthless with that approach. Once we've got that information, we can then start writing our bullet point brief. As I mentioned, if we can interview the client during this stage, we can use AI software, we don't have to be able to reconstruct that into a formal brief. And then we keep hold of that because we can use that same information to write website content. Now, there's a caveat here. If and when possible, I'd always recommend bringing in a copywriting service. You could team up with a copywriter where they could refer work to you as a web designer and you can to them vice versa. Copywriters are generally moving in and using AI to speed up their approaches as well. But the benefit of this is you still get that professional touch. There's AI software out there that will build websites within 5 minutes. They're not very good. So that's why we need to be careful not to become too reliant on AI. When I use ChatGPT, I'm almost always starting on a transcript that's my own content. And even then, I'm going through and spending a lot of time following up with questions, refining the content, etc. In this course, I'll be going through an example for a template website that we'll be selling on our store. It needs to mimic reality. It doesn't need to be final refined content for our client. But I've very recently been through a full workshop process with a client on one of our larger projects. And by using ChatGPT on the fly, it really sped up the process. That client then was given 30 pages of content for the website that I was able to put together in under 2 hours. At which point now he is going to pick that up, work with it, refine it, make sure it doesn't come across as machine language and comes across in their own tone of voice. And that will probably take him 3 or 4 hours. Whereas I would probably be waiting for months to get that content back from the client, especially when your client's quite particular and needs it done right. And we'll spend the time to do that. So AI is fantastic, but as with everything, handle with care. And we'll be using examples of this later on in this project. Back to our bullet point brief. That's essentially all the steps that we need to cover. We're now ready to move on to the other steps of our planning process.
In this chapter, we're going to take a look at the bullet point brief. Thankfully, this has become so much easier in the last 6 months alone by being able to harness AI to really speed up the process of extracting a brief, either for our own project or for our clients if we're a web designer. I've got a standard format that works well for me for a briefing process. It's taken me 20 years of trial and error to get to this point, so you don't have to. For this project, we're going to be working with a fictional law firm based in the UK, and we're going to be working on that website project from start to completion. Even though the details are made up, a lot of what's going to go into this briefing process will be based on experiences I've had with other clients in the same sector. You might be wondering, why pick a law firm? Professional services is a really good example of the type of business that you will often build websites for if you are a professional. We at Pixel Hazer specialize working with the corporate market over the last 8 to 9 years of our existence. If you're starting out, you may not be working with a medium to large size professional services firm like the example we're going to be covering today, but that's absolutely fine. With this process, especially the briefing process and the bullet point brief that we'll be covering, can expand and contract like a concertina effect. This website will not be critical to the running of this exact business. There'll be no e-commerce. It's going to be a straightforward, run-of-the-mill brochureware website. And as a web designer specializing in working with small businesses, this is the type of project that we get more often than any other. It's a tried and tested approach. It's been battle hardened by working with industry on over 3,000 projects. And I think and hope that you're in safe hands here. Let's go take a look. We're going to start off with ChatGPT. If you are moving into web design, I would strongly recommend getting the GPT-4 engine, which comes with a subscription on ChatGPT. It also means that this is far more accessible. There are loads of third-party tools that have popped up that harness the GPT-4 engine, which is the most advanced and the most natural language processor to date. 3.5 is fine. It's solid. It does a good job of refining what we've already got in the background. But here I'm looking to do a little bit more. So I'm jumping across here to our bullet point brief process.
I've got an example here of this being filled in for another fictional company. So what we do with our Squarespace templates that's on our Pixel Haze store, we create fictional companies that look realistic so that when we create our templates, our potential customers can see how they roll out. And this is a good example of a bullet point brief that's been filled in via ChatGPT. And we used another AI software called Otter, where I went through and interviewed myself when I was acting as the client and as the interviewer as well. Why did I do that? Essentially, it just gives a natural flow of how you can conduct a briefing session with a client in your studio or remotely online. So these are the questions, and we've got 10 here for the brief. So what we're going to do is copy this structure, and we're going to just leave that on the clipboard for now. And then we're going to go into ChatGPT and we're going to start priming it for this briefing process. So normally I would already have a transcript from an interview that's in text format that I would paste the transcript in, and then I would paste the structure in, and then ask ChatGPT to align the answers with the structure of the brief document to create a final formal brief that only takes 5 minutes of reviewing and fine tuning at the end. But here we're going to just speed it on a little bit. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to fill in all the details. Okay, so I put enough of a primer in for this. Now, what I could do is actually just save this and then tweak it for each individual client. So we have the board outline. I'm really not sure how it's going to come out because I've never done it this way before. I've always primed it with the results of an interview with the client, but it should create something that we can work with. So if I press Command V to paste on a Mac or Control V on a PC, I'm just going to add a bit of spacing here so ChatGPT can see that there's a clear difference in here. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's see what ChatGPT does with that. So even though it says Manchester Legal Partners, I think we're going to call this company MLP. But this is all great stuff. The one thing we can see here is it's not really picking up the numbering. So it's putting number 1 next to all of the main titles. This isn't going to hold us up here. Yeah, there's some really good stuff in this just to allow me to extract this and to add this into a website. Of course, when we're working with real companies, which I'm sure you will be guided more by the hand of your client. But you can see just how quickly we can process, repurpose, and deliver information on the fly here. Because what we can do next is actually use this content to write our website content as well. So what we should be able to do is to use this structure and these answers to be able to fill out our website content. I'm now going to take it the next step, which is I'm going to ask it to write the About Us page. So this again is something I'd interview the client to find out more about them. So a lot of this content is going to be pretty generic, but then one thing we always struggle with law firms is to get that kind of a unique look and feel, because we're not always after a design that stands out from the crowd. Often what we're trying to do is to blend in and be reassuring that we are one of the best providers of this very familiar service. And this is the same with entrepreneurship and setting up and running a business. Sometimes you can be too clever, and the approach is, and a lot of people have made, most people have been able to grow their business by identifying an area of the market that could be improved. So it's delivering their own piece of experience or delivery that can just improve upon the rest. I'm going to ask it now for team profiles. So we are jumping into the content for the website, but this is building up the backstory. It's already remembering the summaries that it's added in here, and it's just putting in a paragraph now for each of our professionals. And this is pretty accurate stuff. It's quite scary just how good the content's coming out here. Again, not good enough for if it was one of our real clients, but then we prime it, as I mentioned, using Otter AI
to interview them to get this information from them and then restructure it in a formal approach. But this will make our template website that we're going to be building as part of this course look so much better. Okay, so what does the logo look like? What is the color palette? Helps if I spell palette right. And but I put these as questions actually. Image. I've not done this before, but I'm asking for a style guide essentially. Yep, so we're going to go with an MLP logo. Got deep blue, gold. Okay, that could work, and a soft gray. So what we've got there is we've got one relatively neutral color, the deep blue. We've got the gold, which is our action or impact color. We'll use this for call to actions and to make certain areas of the site jump out. And then we've got our soft gray, which will combine with white to provide a nice, neutral, professional, very corporate feel. And then we've got the imagery style as well. Okay. The final step of this brief now is to ask ChatGPT to compile it all together. So we know we need to increase our website traffic by 40% and 90% client satisfaction. Yeah, there's a lot of good information in here that we can use. As I said, because this is an introduction to web design, I've got a full course going through this blueprint process in detail, and that's available on Udemy or on our campus. There is a membership for our campus, meaning you don't have to buy every course individually. And every now and again, we've got a lifetime membership as well. But what I'm going to do now finally is ask ChatGPT to formalize this. Okay. We now have our final brief, of which we can just copy this. So if I select it, I'll select it from the top, it'll be a bit easier. Copy this, and now I can paste this into a new document. When I'm pasting in from ChatGPT, is putting this gray block in the background, but I need to fix that at some point. But now we've got a great formal brief that we can forward this over to our client, and it looks thoroughly professional. And it's based on the information they provide. So I'd strongly recommend that we check everything for this, especially if we're using speech to text tool like Otter to interview the client. Things like the addresses and the names might come out slightly different. But what it would do is we'd get 90% of that information that you need to extract from your client accurate. This form of questioning is a really good place to start. And then we've got everything we need then to progress with the website. Next chapter, we're going to start to restructure this into our core content for the website. So we're going to start with ChatGPT. Then we're going to take that final information of content types that we can add into our website and then take it over to the chalkboard and start creating our wireframe for our website.
We're going to step away from our live project for a few moments and have a quick chat about content prioritization, sitemaps, and wireframing. I'm going to use another example. This is for another template on our store called Galbraith Jewelry, and you may have guessed it, it's an online jewelry store. But first, we're going to rewind a little bit and we're going to show how we can prioritize our content for maximum impact. Let's crack on. Over the last 20 years, I've been developing a process which includes a few Elwynisms. These are little techniques, little time hacks that I've integrated into my workshop routine for when I'm delivering websites, just so I can manage and mitigate the risk and ideally shave a little bit of workshop time off the end of the project. The benefits of this: we can over-deliver if we get the basics and the overall structure in place. If we strive to deliver the same quality or ideally better quality in less time, then that frees up so much of our resources to over-deliver elsewhere on the project. The result is a happier client, probably increased profit margins, and a slick operation. And my first tip to improve all of these aspects will be to have a content prioritization system. It's not very complicated. In my case, I've gone as simple as 1, 2, 3. Tier 1 is our top tier content. This is the most important, crucial information on our web page, and we can treat this on a page-by-page basis. So let's take the homepage of our jewelry store. We're going to have several elements that need to be slotted into tier 1 of our website. On almost all websites that have been designed professionally, we'll have a masthead at the top, often called a header. This section will contain your logo, menu system, and maybe some call to action buttons or even social media links. In years gone by, you'd see a search feature proudly presented in the masthead, but that's been restricted now to large e-commerce stores because in hindsight, many search fields were redundant. In fact, I've been guilty of adding a search field to a 15 or 20 page website in the past, and it's overkill and it takes up that primary retail space for other things. Okay, back on track. Hopefully we get an understanding of that masthead sits at the top of our tier 1 of priority. Then we have often what is called the hero unit. The hero unit is that large billboard that we have 3 seconds to get our message across. So think of an inner city billboard. You're driving past in your car and you've only got a glance to be able to absorb that message. Very much the same with websites, especially if you're in a competitive market, because visitors are fickle. If they go onto your website and they don't get the information quickly, or the website takes ages to load, or they have to hunt for the information that they want, there's every chance that they're going to go elsewhere and potentially to one of your competitors. If you don't like the idea of your competitors stealing your hard-earned customers, then you need to get your act together when it comes to prioritizing the content on your website. In addition, we might have some cultural messages, the company vision, key statement, a key target audience, either within the hero unit or making up another section of our hero unit. Sometimes we'll also put signposting into that tier 1 instead of a hero unit. It really depends on a case-by-case basis. I've done all of the above, and the more websites you design, the more you get a feel for the right flow for your first stab at it. If we back this up with regular reviews and testing to make sure that users are getting to the information that they want and they're not bouncing off the website. A bounce rate is where a visitor will bounce on your website and then bounce straight back off. Kind of like on and off a trampoline. We want to stop that at all costs because if it's for our own website, we're not going to get any sales. If it's for a customer website, we're probably not going to keep the customer for too long if we're not addressing the main problems that we are trying to solve. Here in tier 2, we often have signpost links. Sometimes we'll have latest news or other main areas. In the live example with this project, we may consider having facts or statistics to back up the introductory message. And of course, if it hasn't fitted into the main tier 1 section of our site, we may have a shortened, truncated version of About Us. We're not having 3 or 4 paragraphs, what essentially is a full About Us page. Instead, we are having a very simple, short, single paragraph that summarizes the About section and potentially has a call to action button linking through to the About page from our homepage. Hopefully that makes sense. Then we move into tier 3. This is, as you'd guess, the least important section on our page. And the beauty of some of the content that we put into tier 3 is that it could go into our footer section. That means it appears on every single page. Information that could go into the footer would be your copyright notice, maybe a footer menu or links to privacy policy terms and conditions. Or we could stack the footer and go for what we call a jumbo footer, which is much deeper. It could include any of the following: a newsfeed, a social media feed, or an Instagram gallery. It could, and in most cases it does, have additional contact information. So you don't need to hunt out a contact page to get the address, the email address, the button to leave an inquiry, or if the location is important to the business, a map to find head office. These are just some of the ideas that can go into tier 3. And then the decision you can make is it going to be only for this page, or is it going to appear on every single page? Sometimes we might want to also put brand partners, testimonials in this section, because we're spending the first 2 tiers of our content delivering on the who, the what, and the why. Who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And then where and when can be covered then in that tier 3. And potentially the why in terms of why should someone do business with you. So we could add in testimonials, even video testimonials, into that tier 3 content, because we don't want to sell too hard at the start. We want to notify the visitor in terms of what we deliver, and then we bring it in line with positive reinforcement via testimonials, etc. These are not hard and fast rules. You can break these rules at any time. What I'd recommend is that you have a reason to break them every time that you do. If you can justify it in your head as to why you might be following a design trend, or you've seen something that you really want to integrate into a client's website, as long as you can justify it to yourself and then to the client, go nuts. So I'm going to give you that live example now for the jewelry company. And we start off with this simple map where we can see that the products have an extra level and product categories sitting underneath them. We also have other sections like heritage, news, sales and promotions, location, and deliveries and returns. So now I've got a list of features or elements that need to be on our homepage, or at least alluded to from our homepage. This is not a sitemap. We'll come onto the sitemap in a bit. So here we've got products, and underneath them we've got different types of products and categories. We've then got heritage, so the background of the organization, the why, news to show up-to-date information even when there aren't any new product releases, sales and promotions, making sure that these sales and promotions are highlighted. It may well be that we don't have a dedicated section for sales, but instead we have sales dotted in throughout the product listing that appear on the homepage. So we could prioritize certain products for our homepage, and then of those products, we can actively highlight which are on sale. Simple stuff, but it's a way of making sure that we're ticking all of our boxes without making our website over the top and cluttered. Additional information that's less important would be the location and deliveries and returns. Okay, I kind of spoiled it a little bit there by saying it's less important. Let's go on to the next slide, and then we can really see what hits tier 1 priority. As we can see here, we have highlighted products, jewelry, heritage, and sales and promotions. These are what need to be above the fold line of our website. As mentioned in an earlier chapter, the fold line is essentially the bottom of the screen. So whether we're looking on desktop, ultra wide screen, TV screen, mobile, tablets, the fold line will move slightly, but generally it's there or thereabouts. So what we're looking to do is make sure we identify what that fold line is on, say, 90% of screens, give or take a few pixels either way. And once we've got a rough idea of where that fold line is, we can then make sure that our tier 1 content sits above it. So now let's introduce tier 2 content. Watches for her, for him, custom jewelry and smithing. So these are sections that we can add in as signposting, or maybe even as a secondary hero unit on our homepage. They're not top priority, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be in this section, but they're still important. And what's most important is we're keeping that flow through the website. If someone wants to jump straight through to another page, fine, no problem at all. But what we're trying to do here is to make our website so appealing that the majority of people will want to stick around for a little bit longer. The longer we keep them on our homepage, it's more likely that we'll keep them on our site as a whole for longer. We're using this time to reassure the visitor that they've come to the right place. And finally, let's add in our tier 3. Here we've got events, news, location, and then finally, deliveries and returns. This information is not overly important. It could simply be a case of adding deliveries and returns as a menu item within the footer of our site. And that's probably what we're going to do. Okay, now we've got all that information on the homepage. Let's have a quick glimpse of what our sitemap will look like. Some websites I won't even bother with a sitemap. It really depends on how many pages and how many levels that we need to navigate through. So for example, here we've got our homepage, which always sits at the top like a family tree. But generally what we'll find with our sites is that the homepage will actually sit alongside the About menu item. Then we've got About, Services, Products, News, and Contact. And then underneath the About section, we have History, Our Team, and Culture. So this is a generic menu system. There are many sites where I built this approach. Now, if we look at how we've designed it now for the jewelry store, we can see now that homepage is still at the top there, but we're leading in with jewelry, accessories, custom. Then we go for About further along the menu. The further to the left on the menu it is, the higher priority, with one exception. Whatever sits on the right-hand side of the menu, whether it's a call to action button, will stand out more than some of the others in the middle. It's subtle differences, but these can make a difference to make your website more accessible and easier to navigate. Now let's dive into the secondary level on the menu so we can instantly see that this is actually a larger website. In jewelry, we've got rings, necklaces, earrings, for her, for him. So we've actually bundled the for her and for him, which were standalone signposts on our homepage. They now appear underneath the jewelry section. And then accessories, we've got for her, for him as well. So we've got a decision to make. Do we link to jewelry for him and for her, and then accessories for him and for her from the homepage? So actually have 4 call to action buttons in those 2 signposting sections, or shall we create another landing page that may not be on the menu for her and for him, which then signposts off to jewelry and accessory? Another option, we can combine the content for her page. Here we can have jewelry and accessories for her combined in one page with subcategories. We can then replicate that page underneath jewelry and accessories, as long as it doesn't become confusing where we're not adding too many pages and we've got visitors going down dead ends. Sometimes it can be beneficial. In fact, often it can be beneficial to have multiple routes to the destination. That increases the coverage and the chance of others finding that location. So internal links and cross-linking between sections is often a very effective way of keeping people on our website for longer. So finally, let's talk about wireframing. For me, a wireframe is a very quick sketch just to map down the ideas that I've got in my head onto some form of paper or chalkboard-based structure. Whiteboard, again, absolutely fine, to make sure I haven't forgot about it. Ken, our creative lead, will use his remarkable tablet. So if you haven't seen the remarkable tablet, they are truly remarkable in their simplicity. It's essentially like using paper, but it creates a digital backup of all of your illustrations. The main difference between this and an Apple Pencil and drawing on a tablet is that it feels like paper. And so for designers in particular, it can just feel more fluid and more natural. If you don't have a few £100s to spend at the moment, then good old-fashioned pen and paper will do the job for you. In the example that's coming up in a future video, I'll be using a chalkboard. It won't look very pretty, but the point is speed, because the way we design websites here at Pixel Haze in this day and age actually slots in straight after the wireframing stage, and we don't even need to show clients our wireframes, unless, of course, they're involved in the design process. We can jump straight to the conditioning and building process in Squarespace, and because rapid prototyping and building websites are essentially the same thing now in website builder platforms, we don't tend to need to worry about creating really nice interactive wireframes for our clients. We can show them the real thing. So back to our wireframe, let's have a look at the breakdown of the sections that we use to contribute towards a website. As mentioned earlier, our website generally starts with the masthead or the header section at the top. We'll have our logo top left or top center. We'll generally have a menu system, and then we'll have other shortcuts. For example, a pop-up cart area or social media icons. Occasionally, we might use an announcement bar. So an announcement bar allows us to market or give a clear announcement of maybe our office hours are shut over the Christmas holidays, and we want to make sure our regular customers see that. An announcement bar can be in a temporary bar that sits across the top of the website that we can get that key message across. It's also great for special sales. In this particular example, we've got a product summary block. Summary blocks are a feature in Squarespace that allows us to take content from one location, for example, a blog or a store, and then feed that through as a series of call to action links onto our homepage or any other page. So here we can have the thumbnails for featured products, then the title of those products, the price, and then if you click on any of that, it will take you through to the full product page. That was our tier 1 content, if we remember. So that's why featured products there are above the hero unit. The hero unit is actually lower than it usually is on most of our designs, and here we're going to show a little bit more of the emotional appeal of the brand, the lifestyle, the culture, etc. feeding into that. And we've gone with a specific effect here that has a full image backdrop with a title or a caption, and then the circular image overlapping, breaking the boxy nature of the website. The circular image will be a zoomed in shot of one of the products, probably a ring. Then we've got our intro paragraph. This reinforces the culture of the business after making sure that we've got our featured products at the top because they're tier 1 priority, then having our hero unit also tier 1. Then when we go into the About Us section, in this case it's not as important, it's in our tier 2. Followed up by signposting, which will be the for her and for him, again providing another shortcut to the destination for the user. Then we've got our secondary hero unit, all about custom jewelry. And then finally, we've got our footer section. We've got contact information with a map to find us, and we've got a newsletter sign up as well. We want to make sure the newsletter sign up's in the footer because we want them to leave their email address regardless of the page that they're on. Finally, let's see it all assembled together. As I mentioned, I normally wouldn't go through the steps of creating it to look nice like this. It would be much rougher than this, but it gets the message across. I think it was about 6 months ago that I created these slides for another course, and I can memorize what was in my mind at the time. And I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday without a prompt. You need to find your own route. You need to find your own techniques, but you really, really need to find a way of just sketching and mapping out your ideas before jumping on the software. If you jump on the software, there's 2 things that can go wrong. One, you can tie yourself up in knots, overly focusing on one area instead of building the overall structure and then going through a refining period. And later on in this course, I'll be showing you exactly how to do that. The other problem is if you get distracted halfway through and have to put the project down when you're halfway through the page, you're likely to forget some of the key components that go onto the site further down. That could get you into trouble with a client or miss a clear feature that needed to be in there. Moral of the story, enjoy it, sketch it, write it down.
We're going to flip around our structure in this chapter. We're going to start with on screen. So we're going to jump back into ChatGPT in just a moment, and we're going to ask it to restructure our brief and pluck out all of the main components that we can add to our homepage. Things like our hero unit, which is our main banner on our site, our call to action button, signposting, and even latest news posts, etc. We've got an idea of what can go into our homepage. We're then going to take it over to the chalkboard in the final part to create our wireframe. and I'll create it with you. And once we've got that wireframe, I generally take a photo of it. I like a high-tech, low-tech approach, and I like to get onto the board, mainly because I don't get many opportunities to stand up during the working day, and that's one that I can do if we're working as part of a team. So with Ken, our creative lead, and Will, our technical lead, the three of us will often get our heads together as we're mapping out the structure of a project, and it's just nice to be able to have that environment where everyone can contribute, have a stick of chalk, and just start noodling away with the design. So this is a glimpse of exactly how I've done this process for many, many years, and hopefully there'll be a few things that you can take from this. Let's crack on. Okay, this part should be very, very quick. What we're going to do now is just put a prompt in to ask ChatGPT to restructure and extract the main information from this brief and start giving me some ideas for content for our homepage. Okay, so I've just created that prompt, and whilst it's generating that, I'll just talk you through what I've covered in that prompt. To start with, I've asked for a breakdown of the website homepage, starting with the hero unit. The hero unit, think of it as our billboard. So this is where we're going to choose a client-first approach. We could lead with services. We could lead with our culture as a business. There's loads of different approaches of where we could add into our hero unit. But for professional services, one easy way to get images is to put their audience in focus. So this could be a slideshow with multiple banners rolling through different stories and how we've helped them. And other software companies have delivered this approach very well. So I'm stealing little bits of that and making it our own. Then I've gone in to say we need an introductory paragraph about us, which could then feed off call to action button to the About Us page. Visual links to target audience sectors, so we can have SMEs, corporate, public sector. Then a breakdown of key services provided. This could be in list format. It could be in a accordion approach, so you can expand and collapse to find out a little bit of information about each service and then go to a services page. This is probably providing me more information that I need, but I'm going to use this now as our outline starting toolkit to be able to create our wireframe. And I'll also ask it to create I just put in not including blog posts, etc. I just want to see if it'll come up with a simple site map for this site. Just put it in a markdown block. Doesn't really matter too much. It's not 6 to 10 pages. It's actually added more than that. But again, we can use this to put in front of a client to see what they want. These could be one page, or they could be, for example, the home. These are sections within our homepage. Same with these about. But we would generally put these into a drop-down folder where we have team profiles as their own page. Everything else could be one page. So that could be a 2-page about us section. These could be services listed on the service page, and sectors. We probably have a landing page or a home page for every sector. Now they're all in place. Let's crack on and create our wireframe. We've moved across to the chalkboard. And now we're going to start wireframing based on this outline structure. We've already had the chapter before on the key sections of our web page design. And we're going to start with, hopefully you've guessed it, the masthead. So the masthead is the section at the top of the site, usually quite thin, often called a header. That will give us our initial section where we'll have our logo. Logo will normally be top left or top center. It depends on the design of the logo. If it's, for example, a round circle or disc, we can sometimes put that in the middle and even have it overlapping to the bottom of the masthead. So it just breaks out of the boxy shape a little bit as well. But when we're working on corporate websites like this one, we're generally looking at a slim masthead with logo top left-hand corner, our navigation system then going across. So we've got our site map ready to go. I don't need to redraw that in here. I just need an outline so I know roughly where that menu is going. And some form of call to action button here wouldn't go amiss as well. So that could link us to contact page, request a quote, or the main call to action for the site. The reason we want the main call to action there is that button will appear on every single page because this masthead will appear on every page. So having information in this top section is crucial. That's why we have our logo in the masthead. And a word of advice would be not to oversize your logo. Small, delicate, and just blending in to the rest of the design is usually the way we go with that. So once we've created our masthead, I'm just going to extend the sides of our website layout down the page. I'm not going to finish it off at the bottom yet because we don't know exactly how long it's going to be. I'm also making sure that I'm not coming in too low so that you won't be able to see it on the camera. So once we've got our masthead in place, we're then going to create our hero unit. Our hero unit is our main banner for our website. Think of it as an inner city billboard. This is where we've got 3 seconds roughly to get our main message across. The problem we have with this type of website, and that's why I picked it, is because we don't tend to have great products to show images of. That's why service websites can be more challenging to start with. If, for example, we're a store selling artisan foods, then obviously we'd have professional photography of those products of the food. They're front and center in that hero unit, and the website would look gorgeous without having to do anything else. Here, we've got to work a little bit harder. We've got to choose an overarching theme, whether we go down illustration approach. A lot of software companies have gone down that road recently. We could choose stock images. If so, how do we get around the same cheesy stock images that we find on every low quality website? For example, a giant image of a handshake front and center would be about the cheesiest we could go with for this header area. A lot of larger corporate websites will go for lifestyle shots, so softer taking photos of clients in their environment. And that's what we're going to go with this. It's a safe option. We know we can get a theme carrying across here, but we also know that we can put this in front of the client and they would be content with the outcome in most cases. We'd also, in our briefing process and our meeting with them, prime them to this outcome. And we might even go through a few stock images and select them with the client so that they understand how we're going to move forward. Once we've got our image, we've then got to decide how it's going to fit in here. If we just went with one big image and no content, then we're using up a lot of our prime retail space, because on websites, the vertical space is the prime retail space. We usually have more space width-wise. It obviously depends on the screen size as well. But we have what we call the fold, which is a moving line in this day and age with responsive web design. But we're trying to fit our key content above the fold. We also need to know what our sales proposition is as well. What offer are we going to put in front of their client for them? As web designers, it's not our job to be experts in our client's field, but it's to be able to extract those offers, those value propositions from our client and their knowledge of their industry sector and their potential audience and their target audience as well. And it's our job to recondition that and format it in an easy to navigate website that puts that value proposition in first. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to put it in our main strap line. And I'm going to buy myself a little bit of time to think up some options for that. Again, I go into ChatGPT and ask it to come up with some solutions for a tagline, and then I might completely ignore it, or it might give me a bit of a jolt for something that would work. And here then we're going to have 2 areas that we're going to make use of this space. So we're going to have our client. These are not the best wireframe drawings I've done. So it could be 1 or 2 people, could be 2 people in an office having a conversation. Again, pretty generic, but the way we're structuring it makes it look more corporate. And I'll show you a little bit of that later on. Once we've created that, we've got then this section here. We don't necessarily need that line there. It will depend on how I end up designing it. But so I'm going to put sectors in this. So 3 or 4 sectors that we have will be 3 main tabs in here. So I might even decide to go with 3. So small, and then make this, bring this over a little bit further. We'll start again. So now I know what I want to do. We're going to go with small, corporate, and public sector. We can then put the titles of those target audiences in and a strap line to go with it. We might even go with icon-led approaches. So there's an icon for each of those target audiences and then a call to action button linking through to each. We might then decide to put a call to action button in here, but I think that will be enough. So when we land on the website, we get our logo, we get our menu system. So many of our users will decide to navigate through the menu system because they can see services listed at the top and go straight through to that page. Other visitors will want to be handheld through the process of looking at your website. And that's where this signposting in the page comes to the fore. So here we've got our 3 sectors. Each will be a call to action link, take you through to those sector pages so you can find out more. We've then got our lifestyle business photo of someone in that environment. We can either find a catch-all image, or we can maybe have that rotating, maybe even have it changing on refresh every time we come back to the website. So once we've got that hero unit in place with 3 call to action, so we're maximizing that space, we can then look at maybe then introducing the company. That will just be a catchy intro outlining the credentials and the history of this company. And what I might also do is filter in terms of how many people this company have helped. I'm just putting X% in so I remember what it's going to be. So it could be 3 stats about this company just to reinforce this introductory message before we go into the service signposting. For example, 98% customer satisfaction, X number of cases won per year, and X number of wills written, for example. So there's loads of options that we could put in for this, and those are stats to back up that key message for this company. We don't necessarily have to do that, but as a web designer, I'll often pitch that idea to our client just to set them off guard a little bit. It's within the structure of the brief, but a couple of ideas like that just reassures that our client that they're getting our best work, and we're constantly innovating, constantly thinking of ideas of how we can enhance their website prospect. This isn't rocket science. It's not something I haven't done before. It works well. It's a tried and tested approach. And most website projects that we work on, we are trying to pick our best ideas and recondition them, repackaging them in a top position, again, an offer that really works for our client. Once we've got that in place, we're now going to go to our services signposting. Now, this will really depend on how many services we have. So we could have it almost like a menu system here. And then with each one of them, you can, that's supposed to be a chevron. So you can click on them to expand and collapse each of the services. Once we've got kind of those service breakdown, we then could then put in basically latest news. So we're going to go with a simple carousel block here. I got my widths a little bit wrong there. But that, again, just gives me a notification that when we're going to design this website, we've got the breakdown of the areas. Then once we've created that, we've got options. We don't have to really show anything else on this site. I tend to break down a website into 3 tiers of priority. Tiers 1 at the top here, which would be that masthead, and probably a little bit, you'd probably come down to about there. So we'd start to see the introductory message, maybe that tagline underneath as well. But in that tier 1, and this is where the fold line of our website will come in, let's say 80 or 90% of browser windows, because they will change and vary depending on what device you're looking at the website. So if that's our fold across there, we can see that much, or 90% of our audience can see that much without any scrolling. Then when they scroll through, we then get into, you might have guessed it, but tier 2. This is not as critical as the information in tier 1. It's not our priority content for this page, but the information in this page will probably be priority on its own page. So if we have a services landing page, then of course the list and breakdown of the services will be much, much higher up the page. We then bring into news, which is our regularly updated information. We can then put in maybe some sort of social proof testimonial. Be quite nice. We could add multiple testimonials. We may even have them on a slider so we can flick through those testimonials as well. And then we're going to finish up with our footer section. We're going to have a map showing the location. I know it's going to be a fictional location, but our place in Manchester, so to find out where that is. And then we're going to have our very quick call to action, contact us, or even an inquiry form. This is something that, again, a law firm who works with a corporate market, it really depends on the audience and the breakdown. But hopefully that gives you an idea now of our homepage wireframe with 3 tiers of priority. This gives us plenty to work on when we start moving over into our prototyping software or our final build software. I'm going to have a chapter coming up on website builders versus traditional web design approaches. And this isn't a sale for Squarespace, but that's the platform that I've chosen to use for Pixel Haze. And it served us very well. And we'll be taking you through the process here in Squarespace, showing you how we would bring this layout to life.
I've split the next part into 2 chapters, and the reason being is that this is the beefiest part of the project. Here I put my money where my mouth is and demonstrate how we take everything from the planning process in web design and bring it across into a final homepage design. I'm only focusing on one page because this process is very much rinse and repeat, although I'll probably add additional chapters in the future showing how we can take our homepage design and scale it across multiple page websites. The bigger the site we've got, the more important having that continuity is. And so there are certain aspects of the website, like the masthead, like the footer, that will remain the same, but other aspects that will change on a page-by-page basis. Even if the structure is different, we need to keep the same over-unifying brand and flow from page to page. The last thing we want is a visitor feeling like they've gone onto a separate website. So that continuity is essential. What I'll also demonstrate is how I can then adapt homepage designs for desktop and fit it onto mobile screens as well. In web design, many designers now will go with a mobile-first approach because maybe over 60% of views will be on mobile devices, so it makes sense to start the design process on mobile and then build up to desktop. The reason I haven't done that is not because I'm a hypocrite, but because Squarespace as a platform is better suited to designing for desktop first and then redesigning for mobile. We're not shoehorning our desktop view into mobile, we're just doing it the other way around, where we've got the desktop first, we get that refined and finished, then we move on to mobile designs. This is a top-down view of it, so what I've done is I've sped up the video content for the next 2 chapters to 3 times the speed. If it looks like I'm going like a maniac, don't panic, I don't actually work that quickly. I'll then give a director's commentary, talking you through what's going on in my mind at each step of the way, and how the project is developing. If you're after a step-by-step guide to how to build page layouts and how to build an entire website in Squarespace, we've got our Squarespace Blocks at Tricks course, which is 13 hours worth of content where we go into a huge amount of detail on this particular topic. We've also got our 6-week intensive program, Moonshot, Become a Web Designer. That one's not for the faint-hearted, but if you are serious about a career in web design, we go into a lot more detail, and in that program, we will show you our exact processes of how you can build a website based on our website workshops, which combines everything we've covered in this course and a whole load more. Let's get back to the chapter in hand and let's have a look at seeing how this website shapes up. As mentioned previously, I'm using Squarespace, but the software that we're building the website on really doesn't matter. If you're part of a larger team, then of course you'll probably break the project down into multiple steps. You'll have a platform that you build the composites on. From those composites, you'll get them approved by the client before moving into front-end development, and then finally integrating with a back-end system or database. So I'm just quickly selecting a template to start from. And now we've got our website ready to add in our name for our fictional company. And I've chosen the Build Your Template section. We're going to be changing quite a lot of this as we go through, but as a starting point, I'm just going through the steps here. I don't tend to use this feature very often, so I thought I'd try it for a change. This is a relatively new feature with Squarespace, and it could do with a bit more variety. I like it, but it's still a little bit too basic at the moment. We can't truly build our own templates with it. That's why we sell them separately on our Pixel Haze store. So now once that's created, I'm going to tie in the font to start with. So at the moment it's Montserrat. I'm not 100% set on that. I might decide to change that at some point in the future. Just adjusting the sizes now. It's sometimes worth spending a few minutes to start off with just getting all your font sizes, essentially get your brand toolkit or your style guide laid out within the website. As I said, this is within Squarespace. If you're using another website builder platform, the approach will be slightly different, but we want the end result to be the same. We want a nice uniform look and feel from one page to the next. Next up, then, we're going to select the colors and then build our color palette. So I'm using hexadecimal colors here. I'm using a Chrome extension for a color picker, which allows me to easily pick out the colors. And as you can see here, I've deliberately designed this style guide to match Squarespace. So with the color palettes in Squarespace, we start with the light colors to the left and then move to the dark color to the right.
Now I can export this image and also export the logo or with a transparent PNG background. That gives me options. This gold color works really well because it'll work on both a light or dark background. So by saving it as a transparent PNG allows me to do that. And now I'm just going through and just changing the settings. Putting it on a solid theme. So we're going on a plain corporate white background. This is the safest option for professional services. You can't help but make it look thoroughly professional, thoroughly corporate by taking this approach. So now it's just a case of just adjusting and tweaking the menu system. I want the menu a little bit further away from the social media icons. We probably won't go ahead with Instagram. It will probably be LinkedIn. And we might add in a mail option as well. So an email option to that right. But we'll come back to that a bit later. In the meantime, I'm just resetting now this hero unit. Getting rid of the background image because we don't actually need it. The way I'm going to build it is I'm going to put a image to the right of that section. The pill-shaped button didn't quite work with this. We've gone with nice clean straight edges and lines throughout. So that's the effect that I'm trying to carry through. Just also want to remove the padding on the button to make them. Corporate websites tend to not have things that are too chunky. It's about refined. It's about minimalist approach. And for this type of corporate site, that theme will work really well. I'm now just adjusting the height of this hero unit section and then bringing content in, putting the placeholder ready for the image, and now we're going to upload our image. So here's the first problem we've encountered. There seems to be a bug in Canva. So when it exported our transparent background image, for some reason it reversed the background remove effect that we've added to the image, which was essential. So I'm cheating now. I'm essentially just using a screen grab to add that in as a PNG file. And then I'll export this. I'd probably come back to that and Canva would work next time I try it. But we'll just keep moving on. Just going to crop in on the image. We don't need to load a bigger image because that will increase the file size. And that will also enable that banner image to the right then to have maximum impact. And already that background effect, by applying it in Canva, I've got a separate combining Canva and Squarespace course. And by doing that, it just means that we can have quite nice, intricate designs that are bespoke. Here I'm just going to put in our intro section. And I'm just putting this as a placeholder for now. Our services section below will probably be our key statistics. So I've just head over now to ChatGPT and asking it to write a short summary. I just want one sentence to go with it. So that 30 plus years sentence is perfect. There we go. I might even change that to gold. Head back now and copy the full paragraph, paste it in the right. For some reason, when I copy and paste from ChatGPT, it always puts it in bold and italic. It never used to. Something I've got to look into when I get a bit of a chance. It may or may not do that for you. It's not too big a job to edit it. Okay, it's starting to take shape. I'm still not sure about this font, but we're going to change the call to action button. So instead of it being more information, it's always good to have something that's a little bit more engaging. And now we're going to try and create some strap lines that will work with this page. I'm not overly enamored with any of them. I think that one's probably the best, so I want variations of it that's not as cheesy and slightly more professional, and see if there's anything that jumps out. Again, this is a fictional site, so I'm not going to spend hours finding this information, but you want something that really stands out because it makes the template look better. There we go, we'll go with that. Strategic legal support for your business. So I'm going back into ChatGPT instead of doing the thinking myself. I didn't like that one, so I just put no, and it will understand what you say and go again. There we go. It's a bit generic, but that will do for now. Again, with Squarespace templates, what we find is people who buy the templates really look at the content exactly. It's just how the content flows and the impact it provides. So having real content in there just makes a big difference. I'm now going to add in this sector tab to the bottom right-hand corner of this hero unit. So again, this is tier 1 content, and I might even go with a darker background again. And I want it just to really stand out on the page as the main call to action for it. It may be a case of I even remove legal services button to put more focus on that bottom corner, but I'll come back to that later, if at all. So now I'm just putting in the head. Now I'm putting the header blocks in. The duplicate option works really well in Squarespace, so I'm just using that to put our 3 sections in. And now I'm going to put a placeholder sentence in below. What I might do later, though, is actually put in 2 different text blocks, which will give me a bit more control over the spacing. And you'll probably find I'm going to be noodling a lot with the spacing of this section. It's the difference between having it 90% there and 99.9% there. I'm just going to put these spacer blocks in place. We don't have time in this particular video to upload individual icons. We're going to do a refined video next up where we'll go into more detail on this section. And I just realized I put small business in twice instead of public sector, so I just tweaked that. Okay, starting to take shape. Still not sure about what the best look for this secondary section is. At the moment we got that nagging little line in between the 2 sections, and I'm not sure if I like that. So I might just change this section. I can make it more compact as well. And I think at the moment I might just put it back to white to have that tab above just creeping into that section. So now I'm going to start looking at the statistics. Our year in numbers is probably what I'm going to go ahead with. And now I'm going to put the titles in for each. And when I'm using quotes, this section for quotes, I'll put the quote in at the top bit and then I'll put the author at below. So actually just flipping it around in terms of the amount of content. So I'm just adjusting the spacing now. I might just jump back in and remove, for example, cases 1 from the 143 and put that in the description box instead. That will just give more impact to the number itself. Yeah, that's already looking better. I think I might just put this centrally aligned, give it a bit more impact. And we'll go Excel. Don't like the card effect on the background, so we'll leave that. Okay. Save it. Always good to save on a regular basis, regardless of the platform you use. Now we're going to add in our service breakdown. So I'm going to have a bit of a play around with this to get it to look as we want. Change it to the chevrons. If you remember when we were wireframing this is how we laid out the structure, where we've got the title for the services on the left and then 2 columns outlining the services in accordions. Might try it with a card, see how that looks, although it might look a little bit bulky. And again, we'll change the call to action button to be more specific to the content. And I'll probably just put in a sentence underneath the our services as well, just to ease into that. Going back in now, I don't like the background card effect, so we're just going to remove that. But what that's made now is those columns are too tightly compact together, so I'm going to increase the gap in between each column. Again, if you'd like to find out more about Squarespace, we do have our Squarespace Box of Tricks course that goes into these type of effects in a huge amount more detail. And of course, we've got our moonshot, become a Website Designer course, which is a 6-week intensive program that covers all of this and a heck of a lot more. But that's enough of a sale. Let's get back to this commentary. Now I'm adding in our latest news section, and from here I'm going to centrally align that, just adjust the padding height, and now we're going to add in our summary block. So I mentioned before about summary blocks in Squarespace. Really nice feature that allows us to put our content from other sections like store or news or calendar, feed it into the home page. That section is ready to add content now. Moving further down the page, and we're getting close to wrapping up now, I'm going to swap this image out for a map. And because, again, this is a fictional company, just going to change that to Manchester. That's the location. Okay, it's going right in the middle of Manchester, but we'll be fine with it. And I'm going to leave the contact form on the right. I might put the contact details in, although I might even put them in the footer instead. Yeah, we're going to put them in the footer. Again, bold and italic, so I need to remove that. And I'm just going to put every part of the address on an individual line, and I'm going to put head office above it. Makes it look bigger. And for a law firm, it's good just to have that kind of size and clout coming across. So by putting head office in, it may be that they only have one office. Doesn't matter. It looks good. Okay. The hours and the follow options I might change at a future date. But in terms of building the structure for this section, I'm quite happy with this at the moment. For this bottom section of the footer, I'm just going to put in a blank section. And here I want to put the copyright in. I use Text Expander, which gives me the copyright symbol and everything for it. So I've just opened up Text Expander because I just recently rebooted to get that information in. And now I'm putting the copyright information in place. And just outlining this is a Pixel Haze Squarespace template. I'll have to come back to that later and just put a link in instead. I'm going to try it on the grey background just to separate it from the content above. But yeah, that's not a bad first attempt at it. Hope you like the direction it's heading so far. Yeah, it really does tie in with the wireframe that we created. Happy with this, ready to move on to the refinement process. Okay, so we're back in the admin area. I'm just going to head over to Canva and I'm just going to tweak a couple of the colours. I felt that the grey was a little bit muddy. Probably personal taste, but I just wanted it to be a little bit lighter so there's more of a subtle difference between the white and the silver. And the silver, as you can see, I've gone more sand colour than the blue, just because I felt it looked a little bit depressing. Again, that could just be me, but I thought it was worth just tweaking that as a starting point. Also, I'm not enamored with the fonts. I've used Montserrat so much, I think it's time for a change. Again, personal opinion. There's nothing wrong with the fonts, so I've just changed the sizes first, and as you'll see in a second, I'm just going to change the actual font itself. When we're building websites, we're often spending quite a bit of time just fussing and fine-tuning the font sizes, because of course this is not only important from the homepage, but it's also important for other pages as well. So here I'm just having a look for some alternative fonts. If we're working with a client who gives us a brand guidelines and essentially a font toolkit, then we don't have this luxury. But because we're building this for our Pixel Haze store, I can do what I want. And I've decided to go down the route of choosing Europa, not just for the main headings, but as you'll see in a moment, also for the paragraph font as well, for consistency. Once I've changed the fonts, the base size of different fonts will be different. So therefore, I've had to just increase the font size for Europa because it's by default a smaller font than Montserrat. You'd think that they'd be standardized across the board, but there's so many font choices. That's just not an option. So it's just a little bit of tweaking there. So now I'm just going through, just refining that hero unit. As you can see, I'm saving regularly. That's very important. Now I'm jumping back into Canva again. And here I'm creating a series of icons. We do have a standalone course of how you can combine Canva and Squarespace. I'd recommend heading over and checking that out. But if you're already up to speed with Canva, it's a great quick access tool to allow you to create the elements that you want. Of course, if you are proficient at Illustrator and you're an illustrator yourself, you can of course create your own elements and then save them either as SVG files or as PNGs. In Squarespace, we tend to use PNGs just because it's much easier to manage. SVGs at the moment still need to be uploaded in code blocks, which isn't available on the cheapest hosting plan with Squarespace, and it's just a little bit fiddlier to set up. It is possible though. So I'm just creating icons for each of the sectors. And once I've created those, I've downloaded them as SVGs, but then I quickly realized when I go in for this the first time, I remembered that SVGs are going to be more of a pain to upload. So I jumped back in and essentially cheated and will change them to PNG files. Also changed the icons to gold, and I applied a transparent background, meaning that we can apply those gold icons on multiple background colors without seeing that dreaded white box around the icon. So we're getting there now. I'm just expanding, unzipping that zip folder. So if we download multiple images at one go from Canva, it will essentially put them into a zip folder. Just aligning the icon at the moment. As you'll see in a moment, I'm going to be quite fussy with this, and it's going to take a little while to get all the spacing right. I'll probably end up just changing quite a bit here. You can also see here in Squarespace, I'm using the duplicate effect just to use the same icon in the 3 sections first. This just gives me an idea of positioning and structure, but you can also see, hopefully at this stage, just how much better it looks by having real icons in there than the gold squares. So in the last part where we used them as blocks, I wouldn't show a client until the icons are in place, because you only get one chance to make a first impression, and I want to make sure that first impression is spot on. So now I'm just heading into ChatGPT and asking it to provide me with essentially the starting sentences for each of them. It's provided me more than I wanted, so I'm just asking for a sentence of each, of which ChatGPT's just crashed or produced an error, so it's just a case of press refresh. And now it's giving me a sentence. At this point, it's having a look at it to make sure that the sentence isn't too long for that block. And I've just decided here that I wanted to change the spacing in between each row. So the way Squarespace works is that it works on a 24-column grid, and we can adjust the gutters and the spacing in between each row or column between those little blocks that appear when we're just editing it. Again, if you're not using Squarespace, you'll probably have a slightly different way of editing pages, but this is based on the new Squarespace Fluid engine. It's fantastic, and it allows us a lot of flexibility or fluidity. So once I've got the first section roughly as I want, and I'm still not sure on the exact structure, again, I'm going to duplicate the blocks, even with one content block to start with. And I'm going to spend a bit of time now just really fussing with the column block widths. The 24-column grid ends just before the right side of the image ends. So therefore, I'm just trying to get these to fit, because what will happen is that text block will expand right the way to the edge of the screen if I go any further. I know I'm getting into intricacies of Squarespace here, but that's why I'm changing the column width now, or the gaps between each column, just to make it better balanced. And here I'm just aligning the images to the bottom of their respective blocks to make the layout more compact. Finally, I've landed on a structure that I'm happy with. So as you can see, this took probably about 10 minutes to get right. That was partly due to my fussy nature, but also it just gives you an example that It's okay to spend a few extra minutes on certain areas, especially when we're talking about tier 1 priority content. We need this looking right. And just even by making the font size, the paragraph 3 font size, is making it more compact. I'm much happier with the overall look and feel of this particular layout now. And so now I can start bringing the rest of the content in. I can't remember if I mentioned in the last chapter, but I really wasn't happy with the finish and the polish of the website, even though I was content that we'd delivered most of the structure and we're still on track with the brief. Okay, so I think that's enough editing on that section. Just have a quick look at some of the other areas. By tweaking the font now, it's just looking a little bit neater and a little bit slicker in place. So now we can switch over to mobile view. So Squarespace provides a really nice flexible mobile view option. So the sizes and the restructuring that I'm doing here will not affect the desktop size. But as you can see, by default, it hasn't really understood what I need. So I'm having to go through and resize various aspects. Squarespace has a nice feature that once I've done this once, I can actually save that section as a favorite. So if I need to create that same visual structure on other pages, it's important to get it sorted on mobile first before we save it as a favorite, but also then it just means that we can rapid prototype our website process. When we're talking about something to make this website look wholly unique, it's really that hero unit is what we're focusing on here. A lot of the rest of the structure of the site will be reassuring. It'll be comfortably familiar, but I just wanted this one section to really stand out, to have a nice level of impact. So this is when I'm talking about mobile first. A lot of designers in today's age will look at this first and then build it up to desktop, because mobile may well be their priority. But as long as you treat each layout with respect, so desktop or mobile, and of course you've got tablet, you've got smaller screens, you've got ultra wide screens as well to take into account. As long as you treat each with respect and you test on all of these areas, you should be absolutely fine. So I'm just restructuring, shortening the logo width to make that look a little bit more compact and less glaring on the page, because we don't want the logo to stand out so much it looks a little desperate. As we can see now, we've got our mobile page looking really nice, and then if we switch back to desktop, we can see it hasn't changed the structure of our desktop layout.
Squarespace block. It's a real thing. You have to leave in an hour, yet you're staring at a blank screen. The deadline will come and go once again. Coffee just isn't making a dent. You feel boxed in and out of ideas. We adore Squarespace and have successfully completed over 500 projects with the website builder. Yet we are not immune to the dreaded Squarespace block, staring at the screen, hoping for something to magically materialize. We have scoured the internet for the ideal wireframing tool and have come up empty. We adored the Squarespace section designs in the early days, but after hundreds of uses, they became stale. If I see that bloody landscape one more time. We've searched for, built, and even designed our own Squarespace templates, yet found them inflexible, restricting our design process. Instead of heading down the road to despair, we decided to course correct and build the mother of all Squarespace templates, a platform we could use over and over again, one that boosted creativity and saved us a huge amount of time. In our moment of despair, we forged SquareForge. If you need to freshen up your designs, save a heap of time, and, like us, don't want to move away from your favorite website builder, then we have built something that breaks the mold. And we know we have something amazing. And it's not because we're amazing, we're pretty boring. We know we have an incredible tool in our hands because we have used it over 50 times this year alone. We have built SquareForge from the ground up, pouring in over 20 years of web design expertise into a product that would work for us. We didn't even plan on selling it. SquareForge has saved us over 40% of our build time and ensures no website looks the same. It's time to say goodbye to Squarespace Block and hello to SquareForge. Let's build great big things. Today, we're going to be tackling a problem that's been a headache for web designers like myself for the best part of 20 years. And that is, what are we going to do with support? As designers, we love to throw ourselves into a new project, solving problems and building a solution that looks great. In fact, there's no better pleasure I get from building websites than when you see the evolution through the project and then that final result. But the reality is, websites never finish. All we're doing is we're moving on to the next milestone, which could be the first release of a brand new website for a new business, or it could be the latest iteration in an evolution of websites. And as we've moved forward over the years, that's become less and less iterative and more evolutionary as the website gets updated and maintained as part of retainer contracts or enhanced support or even new mini projects throughout. We're far less likely to see that 3 or 4 year life cycle of a website where nothing much happens to it in that time and then it has a full redesign. So how do we handle day-to-day support issues alongside the client's needs to keep that website maintained, up to date, and ahead of their competitors? For full disclosure, I really don't like support, and there isn't really a member in our team who would say that they thrive off running day-to-day support. It's one of those necessary evils that we've got to do with our project. That's not saying our clients are evil. Our clients are amazing. They love us. They pay us to do what we like to do. But at the same time, we need to be conscious about giving them really good value at the same time as making money out of the support. For many years, support's often been a loss leader for me to take on new projects, but it's not really efficient and it's not a great way to grow our business. In 2024, the landscape's changed completely, and a lot of these practices I've been using for best part of 20 years, so it's well due an upgrade. And we can now leverage the power of communities. In today's example, I'm going to be using SKOOL to show how we can support many clients at the same time without having to reinvent the wheel, without having to redo our support over and over again. So think of this as a knowledge-based plus. So instead of having a go-to resource that we can use for staff or point our clients towards, we can instead actually get it straight from the horse's mouth. We can align our client with the support that best suits them. One of the key benefits here is this opens up the marketplace for us. So it's not just our clients, but also those looking to build their own websites and need more hands-on support but can't afford to pay a professional to design their full website for them. This is that perfect happy medium that doesn't become a one-size-fits-all that isn't great for anybody, and that's why I think community support is here to stay. I've taken the liberty of putting everything out on my trusty chalkboard, and I'm going to give you a comparison between the traditional support approach that I've used for 2 decades against the new community approach that I certainly didn't invent, but I've adapted it to best fit our needs, and I think if you're a web designer, you'll find these useful as well. If you're in need of support, I'll leave some information about our community in the description. And if you're using website builders like Squarespace, Wix, or Hostinger, then we should be able to help you. Let's go take a look. To kick things off, I'm going to show you the latest iteration of our traditional support plan. So this hasn't changed a huge amount since the very early days when we were building our very first websites. We start off with an annual support plan that is around £90 a year, $120, give or take, and it allows us to provide roughly 1 hour of support per year. So as you imagine, this is for clients who need simple brochureware websites. They don't want to change much each year, and they want to be able to contact us and speak to us individually as and when they need the support. We also have proactive support, which is, say, a couple of £100 per month. So there's a big gap between the two. More recently, we've offered a £75 a month support plan that kind of catches that in between, which allows for an hour of support every single month. And it's proactive, whilst with the traditional annual support, it's reactive, it's use it or lose it. With our monthly one, we make it proactive. So every 3 months, if we don't hear from the client, we'll just touch base with them, see how they're getting on. So not only is that good for client relations, keeping tabs with the client, make sure they're happy, but also it gives them ideas of how they can spend more money with us to get new projects and upgrade to their website, maybe some new blog posts, etc. We're always looking at ways of making our support more proactive, and these are relatively new features. But I felt there was something missing. This is very limited because the relationship is always one-to-one. And okay, our clients can have multiple team members, but essentially the relationship is between our team and their team. And as a result, this isn't very scalable. So as we're looking to grow our business, the only way we can offer more support, which is often a loss leader for getting more projects from clients, would be to recruit more staff. The problem we have in our rural area in the middle of Wales is that recruitment's a real challenge. It's really hard to find someone on their upward trajectory on their career who are looking for jobs based on the fees that we can pay and to entice them into a rural area. What we find is many of the students that we work with who come on placements want to go and work in the middle of a city for a larger agency. It makes complete sense. So therefore,
we need a more efficient way of providing support. Enter community support, which is akin to the difference between Web 1.0 and 2.0. 1.0 was your blogs, your websites that were showing content to many people, but that was going in a single direction. The publisher of the website, we used to call them webmasters back in the day, would post all of the information and then you'd have the audience consuming that content. Web 2.0 came along with the likes of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and these social media platforms provided a many-to-many solution. Okay, I can still post my blog post on my website, but there may be a comment section below where my community can be invited to get involved in the conversation. And community support via the likes of SKOOL, with a K, is an evolution of that further. It uses all of the many-to-many relationships and the benefits you have from that, but it takes away all the distractions that you don't want when you're just after a bit of support. I found this when you go onto social media channels and you end up going down rabbit holes, watching content that doesn't really benefit from you, but it just happened to crop up during work hours, and you've probably been in that situation before. With a platform like SKOOL, those in the communities are looking to learn on the topic that the community is set on. And the great thing with this is we can niche down as far as we want. And so we've created two communities, a free community that's dedicated to everything website builders, and then a premium, smaller private community that allows us to jump into a video session every week and be able to ask our audience what troubles they're having. Has there been an update on Squarespace? We can then talk with them in a community environment via a Google Meet call, meaning that you can get that personalized support, but you're not paying one-to-one rates. So let's just take it back a little bit and break down the two examples. Let's go through the annual support first. We have our client, the website's gone live, say 6 months ago, and they are calling us, asking us for help. It could be something as simple as, I can't remember how to log into the admin area. And that's probably the most popular. They will contact us from 1, 2, or 3 different options here. Telephone, email support. Maybe we've got a live chat on our website as well. We've toyed around with that, but our clients haven't really taken to that. And we've got a support system that automates this. So you could actually move the support system further along and they would email, fill in a contact form or phone us, and then it would be filtered into a support system. But I put it in there because we are trying to get clients to go straight to our support system ticket builder, log their concern, issue, complaint, and then that goes into the support system. Then they will have one-to-one help from a member of our support team, usually Will Hammond, our technical lead. That's great, but it makes our roles more limiting because we are tied to providing that support. And because, again, of our rural area, we can't really command the highest price for that option. We're looking at about £90 a year for 1 to 1.5 hours of support per year. Yes, of course, we can ramp it up, and we've been trialing other options like £75 per month. And for that £75 a month, they get an hour of support per month, and then it's more proactive. Whilst with the annual support, it's use it or lose it. There's no rollover, no way to use it. And we will not contact them outside of once a year. We will just touch base with them. With the monthly support plan, because they're getting more support time, we need to be more proactive. So every 3 months, we will contact them if we haven't heard from the client and just see how things are going. And we will give them ideas for how they can use their support contract with us. That means that they stay on the support contract longer and we get happy client, happy us. But that doesn't really allow us much scalability because we're still tied by those same constraints. How many team members have we got? How long does it take to train team members? What's our archive of support content and material like? Although that's a universal challenge that we're working on at the moment. Enter community support. The beauty of this is it's really, really simple. We have a dedicated private area or public area, depending on which option and the budget of our clients, for them to choose. So for example, I'm going to use our premium community, which will be going up to $99 per month. It's actually at $59 at the moment. So jump in now while the price is still low. And the benefit of this is it's a proactive solution. We can send an update. For example, if a Squarespace hosting plan has gone up to our SKOOL community, and we can set up to 2 messages per week to go out to our members. So we're not bombarding them with too much information, but at the same time, we can keep them abreast of what's happening in our local niche. So this just makes it so much easier for our clients to stay on top of what's happening in our industry without us needing to charge to phone them and provide them a personalized service. For those who want to pay extra for one-to-one support and personalized service, absolutely fine. For the rest, and this allows us to open ourselves up to a global audience very easily and run our support through this system where we don't have to arrange one-to-one calls. Our weekly meetings are recorded and we put them on that private community so our audience can access it. This allows us to provide our library of online courses, including our transformation program for those who are looking to go into a full-time web design career. We've got the option to open up discussions. So then other members of the community who are specialists in web design can jump in and help other clients as well. We are not looking for a monopoly of extra support or one-to-one services that all come to us. We're a small team, so there's only so much we can do. So we are inviting other professionals to get involved in the community. As long as they help first, they can, of course, then advertise their services. And we're actually going to have a dedicated space for other web designers to provide their service offering in that area. We're also, as I mentioned, going to do the video meetups. So the three main differences between each of them is this is a 5-day turnaround on our standard support. It's done for you. We deliver it, which will appeal to some clients. And there's very limited support. So you only get the time that you pay for. Whilst with the community support, it's instant. You can log in and check it out at any time, whether it's course content or jump into a discussion. It's done with you. So we're helping our community at each step of the way. And it's unlimited. You can jump in as many times as you want. You can stay as part of the community for as long as you want. All this happens to be is one monthly fee, and it will work out that you'll get an awful lot more for this than what we could ever offer for traditional services. But it's horses for courses, and we do allow the option for one-to-one even in our community. So this will be priced at a premium, but it does allow community members to get extra help, dedicated support, if they feel they need 3 or 4 hours from a professional to get their website over the line. Hope that makes sense. I'm really eager to hear what you've got to say about this. Have you tried something similar? Are you contemplating a community-style support plan for your audience? Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Cheers.
If you're intrigued about finding out more about SquareForge and you'd like to learn with myself and my team how you can create professional looking websites on website builders like Squarespace, then you may want to consider joining our SKOOL community. That's SKOOL with a K, and the best news is SquareForge is going to be included within that subscription. You have SquareForge plus every single update available, our full 6-week transformation program to become a professional Squarespace web designer, and all of the tips and resources in our Pixel Haze Academy library. Going further than that, myself and my team will be available with some tips or guides. Our aim is to overload you with quality and value, and there's info in our description to join the waitlist. Let's get back to the video. This is a platform built within Squarespace that allows us to rapidly build Squarespace websites. Now, that doesn't mean to say that the quality is going to be any lower than if we're starting from scratch. The entire aim of this tool is to massively reduce the amount of time that we spend on repetitive tasks, so we can spend more time with the client, working through different creative challenges and building beautiful websites using Squarespace. The Forge works within Squarespace, so there's no additional software to install, but we will replicate our master template, then we will give you full admin access. From that point, you can duplicate that template multiple times for an infinite number of websites that you're working on. We use it as a starting point when we're working through our website. This is a tool based on processes that we've instilled over a number of years. We love the Squarespace templates that you get to choose when creating a new website. We also love the new section designs that have been introduced in Squarespace 7.1. However, they are a little limiting. So we found ourselves building the same structures over and over again, then adapting them and customizing them to make the websites look bespoke. To help all of this process be more efficient, our team have been actively working on SquareForge since early 2024, but in truth, most of the concepts, the layouts, the designs are tried and tested toolkits that I have been working with in the web design industry since the late 1990s. The technology's changed, for sure. The platforms that we worked on have also changed. We've had the introduction of responsive web design and rich media in our web layouts. The principles of design, the use of white space, equal spacing using a grid system have all stayed true. I'm now going to give you a preview of how to set up and work with the Forge. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch, and the Forge is available now on the Pixel Haze Academy store. Let's crack on. Here's your step-by-step guide for how to use the SquareForge. I'm in my Squarespace dashboard, and this will vary depending on how many websites you have with Squarespace. Once you've made your purchase, we will add you as full access to the SquareForge within 2 working days. From this point, we should be able to find it in our admin area and find the 3 dots. This will bring up a series of settings, and from here, we duplicate website. This is really important because we don't want to be editing our master template for SquareForge because we want to be able to duplicate it in future for new websites. As part of your purchase, you have full lifetime access to this version of the template, and for early bird customers, you'll get a free upgrade to Squarespace Forge 2.0 when that launches in summer 2024. We're now going to duplicate the website.
And it can take a few minutes, although we have made sure that we don't have any high-resolution photos in this version of the Forge, meaning that the duplication option should be quick. Expect in total for it to take between 1 to 2 minutes to complete. So it's a good time to grab yourself a cuppa while it's going through this process. Once it's created, we should find a copy of the site. However, one thing I've noticed with Squarespace is it doesn't bring them up to the top of your website listing automatically. So we need to run a quick search and we can find our copied version of our website here and ready to go. So we click on that. And we're now ready to add our site title. I'd recommend entering that so we've got our website ready to go. And I'm just going to put an example for a new template that I will be building. And we can go through the startup tutorials available to you. Click Get Started, and we now have our website. In your version, all of the template pages will be off the menu, so you don't need to worry about moving them. However, Squarespace does have some quirks every now and again that it will move pages around without you wanting to do so. This is especially the case if you have multiple people editing your website at similar times. It can throw up some issues.
If you're intrigued about finding out more about SquareForge and you'd like to learn with myself and my team how you can create professional looking websites on website builders like Squarespace, then you may want to consider joining our SKOOL community. That's SKOOL with a K, and the best news is SquareForge is going to be included within that subscription. You have SquareForge plus every single update available, our full 6-week transformation program to become a professional Squarespace web designer, and all of the tips and resources in our Pixel Haze Academy library. Going further than that, myself and my team will be available with some tips or guides. Our aim is to overload you with quality and value, and there's info in our description to join the waitlist. Let's get back to the video.
So what I tend to do is collapse all of these folders and then simply move them into the Not Links section. So that just might take a minute just to update our site structure accordingly. Maybe surprisingly, but one of the first steps that we need to carry out is to choose our footer section, mainly because for all of these sample sections, the footer's been hidden, a new feature in Squarespace 7.1 as of 2024, meaning that we don't have this at the bottom of every one of our pages. So I'm going to choose the footer that I want to edit by going into Edit Settings on the page. And I think I'm going to choose this option. All I need to do is go through and remove all of the sections that I don't need. This is why I try to strike the balance between not having too many footer designs, so it's not going to take you too long to go through this process. These dividers can also be removed as well. Okay, we now have our footer ready to go. At this point, we can actually delete that page. And also, I'm going to set our home page. I'm going to rename the URL slug. We are going to create a new home page so we can delete our home page here. So I'm going to click on the plus icon and add a new blank page. Call it home. Go into the settings. Set this as the home page because we cannot delete a page whilst it's being set as home. Now with our new home page, we can see the home icon next to it. So that means we can delete the other home page. For these sections here, we want to keep them off the menu structure, so we have our full menu option at the top here. We can now proceed and change our logo and other effects that we want in our hero unit. Again, in your version of the template, it will not have this overlapping effect that we've used using some custom code on our version of the site, so the logo should be nestled in the header region. To start building up the page layout, we can choose different sections. I generally start with the hero, and if we look at some of the classic options, heroes are our billboard, that initial impact when we first land on a website. So we're going to choose this one here. We're going to change the wording, of course. We're going to choose that as our hero unit. So by clicking on the favorite option, saves it in favorites, meaning that we can reuse it. And I might even use a secondary hero further down the page. So I'm going to select this section here as well and add that to favorites. I can now proceed to move to other sections like signposting. And let's have a look at some of the 3-column signposts that we've got available. Because this template will be visual-led, I'm going to choose this template option. This is something that will happen when we duplicate sites in Squarespace.
I'm not sure why it happens, but it's a little bug, so sometimes you won't see the images coming through. There's not a huge amount we can do about that. I've tried to reduce the number of images we use to make that less of an issue, but in preview mode it still works, but when we go into edit, the image disappears. As we are going to be putting our own photos in place, it doesn't really matter so much. I'm going to select a content section, and let's have a look at a short content section to introduce the site. And I think we'll go for this simple, standard, central aligned paragraph. And let's choose a longer content section as well. And we're going to choose this template. Now we have our footer set. We have deleted the homepage and set up a new homepage for our site. We're now ready for the final step of this tutorial, which is to add our newly saved sections. Keep in mind that we can access and use all of the standard Squarespace templates at any time. We've deliberately designed our template structures to be different to the standard Squarespace ones, so you have that choice. But if we now go into saved sections, we can see the areas that we have saved as favorites, and now we can start to build the structure of our page step by step. We can save it just to see how everything's clicking into place. This is where we can start to add our content and look at areas like spacing here. So if it looks like there's a little bit more spacing towards the bottom than what we want, we can then use the sections here to adjust. For example, we can remove the fill screen option on this to bring the images up compact to make this section more balanced. Once we've done that, we can add a bit more breathing space at the bottom. And now we can start adding our images. So if I click edit, you can see I'm constantly saving. And we're going to find some stock images. And I'm not going to spend too long selecting these images to get us up and running. I'm deliberately going to choose to get more of the road so we can see our text over top of the background. Again, just save that, see how it's looking. We can see a nice contrast here, so we don't need a hero with a block behind the text. And we are just going to quickly wrap up by updating these 3 images. Whilst it's adding the image, we can see it's set to fill here. So what it will do is zoom crop the image to fit the frame. If you were to change to fit, you can see that it keeps the original aspect ratio. Alternatively, we can, of course, change the shapes. So even though the templates start out looking one way, we've got full customization to update the structures accordingly. Now it's a rinse and repeat process on the other sections. Before we wrap up, we can see that these text blocks here are getting a little lost with the background image. So at this point, we can either choose to add in a shape, and that's what I'll do in this example, or alternatively, we can put a background behind our text. So we can align it to the center and choose a background. And I'll just show you both options. We can even change the opacity of that shape and just move it back behind the title. So 2 very quick, easy solutions to make this section look rather different. Of course, we can centrally align that text so it fits nicely within that section. Once we've got the outline structure of our first page in place, this is where I would normally jump across to the site styles, and I would upload our logo. And then from that, we will have our color palette to be able to change the colors. And the beauty of this is it will change it throughout the entire website for you. And the same for our font selection as well. I will certainly be creating more tutorials that will go into more detail on all of these areas and how we can use the Forge to rapid prototype our website building process. And if you're a professional designer, you can of course run through this entire process with your client in the room. In fact, that's what we do at Pixel Haze Studio. And we find that we can come up with large layouts within as little as an hour. Or if we want to work on a bespoke, higher budget website, we've got more options for customization. We need to make sure that the website's still working on mobile. And because we added the new shape here for custom solutions, we will need to go in and update that signpost. So it's a case of just moving it
and adjusting our blocks accordingly. And there's be a little bit of space to tidy up as well. But hopefully that's given you an idea of how you can use the Forge to rapid prototype your website building process. At Pixel Haze Studio, we use this every day on every single Squarespace website that we build. So I can confidently say that if it works for us, then there's a very good chance it will work wonders for you as well. Let me know how you're getting on with Squarespace Forge. Happy building, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.
If you've stumbled across SquareForge and you're wondering what it's all about, or if you've just purchased the Squarespace template builder and wondering what the next steps are, this is the video for you. We start here. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through an example of how the Forge will look when it's been set up in your own account and how you can get started. I'll also show how you can get the most out of it for free by just browsing through squareforge.net and looking at the examples. The great news is I'm creating a huge range of tutorials showing how you can build these layouts from scratch. So I think we'll just jump over to SquareForge and take a quick look. I'm on the homepage for squareforge.net at the moment. And as I scroll through, we see all of the benefits and we can see some of the information in terms of how it works, how you can purchase it, and also a wide range of FAQs. I'd recommend you start there just to make sure it covers all the bases you need. If there's a question I haven't answered that you feel is really important, let me know in the comments and I will get back to you and add them to the FAQs as soon as possible. Here's just a slideshow showing some of the designs that we can now add to our Squarespace site using SquareForge. This is a platform that's built into the Squarespace system. You don't need any additional software to get it up and running. And the way it works is you purchase it. I will set up a duplicate version of the site from the master option that I'll be showing in just a moment. And from that point, you can start manipulating the designs, saving them as favorites, adding them into pages. And instead of working with a flat template where everything is rigid and you are fitting your content to the template, here you can mix and match any structure you want and change the color, the format, and even tweak the structure as and when you need it. So there's a huge amount of versatility, hence why we built it for our own team at Pixel Haze Studio. And so let's have a look at some of the designs in SquareForge. So if you want to use this for free, go nuts. Here's an option, for example, where you can use a card hero unit, and I've created tutorials showing how to create that background block effect behind the text. That's just a simple button, and then there's a background image that currently is a grey block, but we can replace that for any image that we want. Again, this isn't a structure that's built into Squarespace as one of the options we can choose. So historically, I'd have to build that from the ground up every single time. And as we scroll down, some are going to be more straightforward, like the one we've just seen, or some will be more detailed, like this one, which is a Polaroid style hero unit. We can put an image in here, but also we could put a different photo in the background or texture or pattern to make that really stand out. This uses a shape for a border sitting above the header. Again, we can build all this from the ground up using individual components, but the idea of the Forge is there's over 250 of these structures for all different types of content ready for you to mix and match. And I also use this with clients in the room as well, where we will go through using this as a toolkit and pulling out some structures and styles that the client really likes. Do they like rounded corners? Well, we can try these with rounded options. Do they want an underline effect? So that adds it in as well. So what we find is that we're not constrained by these. We can restructure and reposition every single element within these designs. However, it may give ourselves, our design team, or our clients ideas about what we can do within the Squarespace platform. It's as much a showcase as anything else. So here, just a heading text block, a paragraph text block, then a 1 pixel line, which is the default in Squarespace when we use the line tool. And then underneath that, then we've got 2 different button styles. We've got a primary button style with a solid block, and we've got a tertiary button style, which has just the underline option. Using the 2 together gives it a novel individual effect. This one, for example, uses frames, which allows us to create shapes to add photos or images into. So again, we can bring 2 images into our hero section. This could work really well if you've taken portrait photos off a camera phone and they won't transfer well across to a landscape layout or a letterbox layout like this full background. So instead we can drop them into these shapes and then go with a pattern, texture, or just solid color background for our hero. So those are just heroes. And as we go through to different content types, we've got classic content blocks. If we wanted an overlap effect, whether this was just a photo or solid color, we can do that. We've again got our tertiary button style to make it a little bit different, centrally aligned content, and everything's been spaced out by professional designers, predominantly myself, meaning that you've got really clear, effective white space to make the content really jump out. A more advanced option here, we've got an image offset to the right and then 3
icons or smaller images to the left for each bullet point that we're outlining in this content area. And as we can see here, this design would work together. The way we've got that paper cut-in effect, so it looks like a sheet of paper on a background, that could work for both of them. Or at this stage, we could just get rid of that background and just have this to continue to flow from the section above. The choice is completely up to you. And 2 column layouts already pre-built. Now, there are a lot of these options in Squarespace, but they're quite limited and they haven't really changed a great deal since the very early days of 7.1. By having these extra layouts on top, just makes it really easy to work with. So those are just some of the examples that we can look at. I'm going to switch across to our master Forge layout, and this is exactly what you would get, a replication of this site. So instead of the homepage on SquareForge promoting the product, the homepage on the master template is a tutorial page showing you how to get the most out of it, step-by-step guides for video tutorials that I've created showing exactly how to use Forge for the first time. So I'm not going to run through that now, but I will show you it from the admin perspective. And if you're not new to Squarespace, you're going to find this really easy. If you are new to Squarespace, then I've got those guides specifically for you. As we scroll down on the left-hand side here, we've got nothing on the main menu. I've deliberately kept that clear at the moment, meaning that you can add your own pages to the main menu. For example, you can add a blank page, and let's create a home page there. And from this point now, we can look at some heroes. So let's go for some rounded options. I'm not going to be editing these directly. What I am going to do is find something that I like. I think I'm going to go with this as quite a wordy, text-heavy hero. And I'm going to save that as a favorite. I think that's everything I want from that particular set of designs. And then let's go for short content area to start with. Yeah, let's go for this one here. Save that as a favorite. Jump back out. And we'll go for one longer content area. No, maybe content classic. And I'll grab this section here as well. So we've got 3 sections now that we've saved as favorites. These have all been tested on mobile, which means that we can now just bring them into our new homepage. When we look at it, it just starts out from scratch, an empty structure. So we can go in here now and go to saved sections. And here we are. So the first structure we can put in. Okay, I want actually a hero above that, so we're going to put that in first. And then finally, we're going to add in our signposting section. Okay, for this, we don't necessarily want an image in that place in this example, so this is where we can start manipulating and editing it exactly as we want. Likewise, I might want that section to flow into this one. So if I edit this section, go to colors, and I'm going to go for lightest to get a white background. At this point, I could mimic this shape effect behind the text. So like when we're working with the default Squarespace, we can do everything we can there. So I can add a shape, and I'm going to bring that shape behind all the content and make it the same width as the section above. Then I'm going to send it to the back. From this point now, I can edit the section, and I'm going to remove the fill screen option to make it nice and compact. And I'm using Shift and Select to select multiple items just to bring a bit more breathing space into that area. In fact, I don't think I need to do that. It was working quite well. So I'm just going to move it back up to where it was. Bear in mind that we now have a shape there, so if I want to make that area more compact, I just need to bring it up higher like that. They don't necessarily need to be on different sections, but as a demo, that just shows you how we can get that design to flow from section to section. And I probably want to do a little bit more work. I'm not sure about this cutout effect with square corners at the moment because it doesn't really tie in with this rounded effect here at the top. So this is where I can go to this shape, edit our shape, and then maybe put a 50 pixel rounded corners on that shape. Maybe I'll go more, go for 80. But now we're mirroring that shape there. But I don't want to stop there because an image with square edges won't really click with this. So let's go to design option again. and put some rounded corners on that. Now that text area is cutting off at the bottom, we can see that this shape is here. So normally I would jump in and fix that. And instead of putting 80 around every corner, I'm going to make the bottom, left and right completely square. So that's just one example of how we can take existing layouts and customize them using SquareForge to really rapid prototype website building with the platform. The one thing I was going to wrap up with finally is we've got this section at the bottom, which is all the footers on our site. As we can see, there's a lot of different designs. The way I would tackle this when ready is just go through. Once we know the overall structure of our site, and I think this footer could work really well, we just go through and delete all of the others and the spaces and leave with just the one footer. And the way we do that is if we go to the footer page that I've already created here, which only has footers, we can just go through and delete the ones we don't want, leaving the final one that we do. So we can have multiple sections in our footers in Squarespace. So if you wanted to combine two of these together or build your own, no problem whatsoever. I hope you found this all helpful. It's quite a bit to take on, especially if you're new to Squarespace, so I'd strongly recommend checking out our SquareForge channel because we've got tutorials on just about everything, and if I haven't built it yet, I can guarantee it's in the pipeline. We're really excited to share SquareForge with you. I'd love to hear what your comments are. Have you tried using the platform, or have you been over to squareforge.net and got some inspiration from the layouts on there?
Getting your website live, it's not life and death. It may not feel the most critical of issues. It's not a clutch moment in the Super Bowl. Your career does not hang in the balance. But in that moment, it sure as hell feels like it. We have built a Skool community that helps you lay the foundations for success for just $4 a week. At Pixel Haze, sometimes we believe it's the tiniest steps that lay the foundation to building great big things.
Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to take this template and turn it into a fictional design for a local family bakery. And I've jumped over to ChatGPT and I've already put all the settings out there. So we've got some good content here to lay out in our homepage. I'm just going to ask for it to give me fictional addresses and contact details. And we're going to demo SquareForge and build up a homepage design section by section and just show how quick it is to populate that. So I'm hoping to be done and dusted within about 20 minutes, give or take. I've also created a color palette here. Normally when we're working with real projects, we'll have the color palette, we'll have the logo, and we'll have the font selection, but we're going to wing it a bit in this tutorial. So I'm going to click Edit and jump into Squarespace. And the first thing we're going to do is actually remove the footer sections that we don't want. So click in there once and we can see now that we can remove them one at a time. In our footer, we're going to want to have a map, maybe a photo, and opening hours and contact details. So I think we'll go with this one here. We can tweak it if we want to. What I'm going to do now is just remove the ones that I don't want and leave the section that I do. This is probably the most repetitive job we're going to have in the entire process. One thing we can't do at the present with Squarespace is save a section as a favorite. I'm not going to upload a logo, we're just going to use a font in this case. So I'm just going to remove that and we're going to update these details afterwards. Okay. So now we've got our footer in place. There's a bit of extra spacing here that I don't want. For now, I'm just going to click on Edit Section and we're going to remove the fill screen option. That should get rid of the extra spacing around it. If it doesn't, it mainly just need a full refresh. There's a little bug there in the system. But what we're going to move on to now is the color palette. So I'm going to go to Site Styles, click on our colors here. We can see it's monochromatic. We've got some options here that we could choose. One thing that's important is we go from light to dark. So we've got the lightest options on the left and the darkest, therefore, as you would expect, on the right. We're going to instead customize this and we're going to have more control over how it looks. So this is where I'm going to bring the palette forward and we can see the lightest options here. I've got a ColorZilla Chrome extension. This is on Chrome, but it also is available on Firefox. And I'm selected those colors. So I'm going to leave the one to the left as white. I'm happy with that. and I'm just going to copy and paste my colors. So what this does is it copies the hexadecimal values for the colors. And what we're doing is we're going from lightest to darkest. So I've got a decision to make now. I can either add this one and leave out the burgundy color or the red color. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I like to have minimal color options. So what I might do is just make this one a little bit lighter so there's more differentiation between that and the color across from it. We can see it's got a hint of blue in that color, which is quite nice. So we'll keep that. And we're going to go back and we're going to select the darkest color now, which I really like, which will replace the jet black that was in the original SquareForge layout. If you are new to SquareForge, you don't know what it is, it's a rapid template builder for Squarespace that I've built over the past 12 months, but it's based on concepts we've been using for a lot longer than that. It allows us to go through and build Squarespace websites 30 to 40% faster in some instances, as I'm hoping to demo today. Now we've got our color palette in place. Actually, let's just choose the font selection as well. So I'm probably going to choose a font pack. I think I'm going to go for this one here. Because it's going to be for a family bakery, we want it with quite a friendly, approachable font selection. And we're going to go with serif fonts, like a modern serif font for the headings, and then a sans serif font without all of the funny little details for the paragraph content. Press save. Now our color palette and our font selection are in place. Now we can go and look at the different content structures. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll bring up squareforge.net so we can see them before we change the colors and the fonts to start with. So we can see here we've got different hero designs that we can use. So hero sections are our big billboards or banners at the top of our website. And we can save these as favorites and then bring them into our homepage design. So something like this, where we could put a full background photo behind it. And it's just got a nice introductory section. We've got the centrally aligned option there, but there's loads to choose from. We've got it broken down into loads of different options. There's over 300 templates that we can use and adapt to our own requirements from here. Everything from membership tables through to signposts, contact blocks, content blocks, pretty much everything you need to build websites quickly. And they're all tested and working on mobile. So this is how they look on the default option, deliberately monochromatic. We changed the color of this section here to match your brand. So when you're reusing it multiple times, it just feels like what you need. This option here has the triangle image, but there's loads of options we can choose from. And we can find them in the not linked section on our menu. They're all in folders. So let's have a look at the Hero Classic, for example. And now we can see it's got our color palette. So the color palette and the contrast may not work based on the changes we've made, but we can already see it's looking more individual. We've got this nice serif font here for the heading, and then sans serif for paragraph and buttons. If I go to full screen, it's now a case of finding one that I think will do the job nicely for what we want. So I'm going to be using stock photos for this. I think I'm going to go with this. So we'll go a photo on the right here and then just a grid block behind, or just a solid block behind the title. The reason I'm seeing this is for the Square Websites Chrome extension, which is a fantastic, really handy tool that allows us to copy and paste sections from one to another. It's available if you head over to Pixel Haze Academy. We've got a full dedicated section on Square Websites plugins, which we partner with, and they're great. For now, I'm going to disable that extension just so we don't have any confusion when we're using it. Sorry, guys. Once again, though, great selection of plugins, and the Chrome extension has saved me hours of time, and it's ideal if you're a pro user of Squarespace and are on it every day like me. But now we're going to go to this section, and I'm going to click on this little heart icon, and that will save it to our favorites. And what I'm going to do now is just go through the options here. And we've got 4 signposts. We've got a section with an intro paragraph, and we've got our hero section, which we've just saved. So let's go back to pages, and now let's have a look at some content blocks. I'll expand this section, and we want a short content block, and something like this will probably be exactly what we need. We might even go with this one, which has got a little thumbnail image as well. So I'll save that. We're going to need some testimonials, and we're going to need some signposts. So I can just collapse these folders when we're done with them. And we're going to go with signpost 4 column plus. So I'll go with the classic option first, see what's available to us. That's quite nice. We could put photos in behind each of these signposts. I want to go for a nice image-heavy design. This could work really nicely too. Definitely want to go with something with images. Or we've got the option to put in 4 large image blocks with a 2 and 2 layout. Decisions. Let's go with this option here. So I click Edit. We can see when we go to full screen, these 2 images go to full width, which is quite a nice effect. So we're going to go with that. We're going to exit out of that. And we've got to get our testimonials. And I think we're about done then. Oh, in fact, there will be a card option we need to choose. So testimonials are under quotes. So let's go with a 3+. And we can go with this one, I think. Or maybe this one here. Yeah, we're going to go with this one here. We can see there's a little animation behind it. And we'll save that testimonial block as a favorite. If any of the layouts are a little bit fiddly, it's usually the testimonials when using SquareForge. I don't know why. When we save them as favorites, sometimes we've got to go into it a couple of times and just give it a bit of a shake for it to work. Okay, nearly there. There is one final option though. I wanted to put in a section that breaks down the step-by-step guide to how the baking process works. So what we're going to need to do is find a content block that would work for that. And I've got just the idea. If we go to signposts and go to cards. So we could look at this. Or we could go into content benefits, which is another way of laying out this type of content. This could be quite nice. We could upload an individual icon with each of these. I don't have the icons available, so we might have to just skip that process and use our imagination of it, that we're going to put an icon set that we could build really easily in Canva. In fact, I might even do a tutorial showing how we can build those icons and finish this off using Canva. So there we go. We've saved that one. Got 6 options in, 6 steps in the content created, so that's good. And let's head over to our home page and start building this out. So I click Edit. Now we're going to add a section. I'm going to go to Saved Sections. I'm going to start from the bottom and work up. If I thought about it, I would have put the content in reverse maybe. I think I'm going to put the benefits above the testimonials. Because we've got this section here with the short introduction, I think we're going to bring the signposting up. And I'm really liking that color palette. It's just nice and minimal. So let's save that and now start bringing our content in. So we're going to start with the title. Of course, in most cases, we'd recommend a client goes through the process of having a professional logo. It does make a difference. I called it Castle Bakery, didn't I? Could have just typed that. One thing we're not going to look at today is the navigation. But to build up a menu navigation, we can add pages to this menu here. All of our Forge layouts are in the not linked section, so they don't interfere with the website itself. Apart from this page here, which is linked by a button, and that's updatable via the masthead section, or the site header as Squarespace calls it here. So the first thing we can see is that the titles don't work really well when they're all caps, or certainly not my preferred choice for this type of content. So we're going to go with something really simple, freshly baked bread. I'm going to go with a heading 1. And I've got the option here to edit it. I could make it full width. Expand the text to the container width to do something a bit different. I think we'll go with that. Something a bit different. Maybe adjust the line height, but yeah, I think we'll go with that. So what will happen sometimes is when we go with larger font, it will just expand the container. So we just need to do a little bit of adjusting to get that back. And if we're looking at needing more even spacing, terrible. If we're looking at getting the spacing balance between these sections, we can play around with this with the alignment option on this line here. Okay, I think we'll go with that. maybe even go one more width and go with a really bold, striking heading. Yeah. We'll settle for that because we're on limited time and I want to get this wrapped up within the next 10 minutes or so. Now we're going to replace this image and we're going to search for free stock images. And I'm just going to search for bakery. I'm just going to go for this one here, product front and center, but it's also got a human element. That could be the owner of this fictional business. Now we're going to put our tagline in place. So we go back to ChatGPT and that's very cheesy, but we'll go with it. Select all and paste. And from here, we can maybe change the paragraph size to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe even drop it to center of the line. So we've got roughly even spacing above and below that line. We'll need to go over to mobile in a bit and fix that because some of the changes we made will have adjusted it a little bit. But overall, I'm quite happy with that as our hero. We could do something completely different with this side here. For example, we could go to change it to a shape and circle being the most popular. Squarespace could definitely do more with these shapes, give us more options to work with. We can go with that option there, but actually I'm going to keep it to the square and set it to fill the frame. And now we're going to move on to our next section. Here, even though I like the colors, of course, this will not come out like this because we're going to be swapping these with photos. In SquareForge, I've put photos as solid block colors just because it makes it easier for you to imagine what you want in place. Sometimes with strong photos, it can sway your decision making a little bit too much. Just going to check what the signposts are. So here I want people in this one because it's our story. I think we'll go with that one. And we can see we've got a challenge here already. So I could go for an overlay on each of the images. I'm definitely going to do that. And we'll go for the darkest color on the overlay. And then we just bring back the opacity so we can see it clearly enough. We could try it with the gold color. I think I'll do that and then change the color of the section. So if we go to edit section here, and we can see it's one of the darkest options. If we go to the lightest, the text then goes to darker. But it's always a trade-off. And we might have to increase that overlay to give it the impact it needs. For me, I would probably edit this photo. I would take the saturation right down, so it's a black and white photo, bring the contrast up, and probably the brightness down. Because when we add the overlay now, there'll be more clarity on the image behind, and it blends better with the layout. And we can adjust it then. This used to be very popular in graphic design. It's kind of gone by the wayside in terms of having watermarked images behind, but it still can have a place when worked properly. So let's do the same now with this section here. Have a look at the content for this section, which is menu. I'm just going to search for menu here. It probably won't be right. So now we set a precedent with this one. We're going to need to go into edit this photo and the same approach. Take the saturation to black and white. Make sure it's got good contrast and just darken the whole photo. So when we put the gold overlay on top of it, it fits. And we can just adjust it by eye. So if I go to design, overlay, change it to our gold color and bring this back so it fits with this one here. Another option, of course, we can just check by eye in terms of the positioning on this one and make sure they match. But I'm quite happy with that. There seems to be a nice flow from one section to the next. The challenge we got here is finding photos that have red. This is the free stock library that's got a little plugin directly into Squarespace, which is nice. I think we'll go with the croissants. Yeah, my 20 minutes was a little optimistic. See if there's anything for Brecon, maybe the Brecon beacons or something like that, which could be quite nice. I think we'll go with this photo here, showing the rural location for the bakery. I could go in and crop each of the photos so that they take a smaller file size, because it's only showing the ratio of the photo, but I think I'm fine with that. Gives us more flexibility if I stick with the original than this design. Obviously, we need to change the text. I'm going to save that and jump out of it, back into it, just because I'm paranoid about potentially losing connection and then losing all of that we've just done, which I probably would cry. And now we've got this section looking quite nice. Let's just change this text quickly. So we go back here. So what I tend to do is just select the text after the first character, and then remove the first character afterwards, then jump through each of the options. So hopefully we'll get this to fit on one line throughout. The only thing is it's just moved everything up, which is a pain. But we can move it back manually. So if I paste it without selecting the first character, we can see we've lost the first character. So we're just going to paste that in again. So that's one option. We could just bring it all down, which will save us a bit of time, and then just select the background image and move that back up afterwards. And that's fitting onto one line, at least when this is full width. Go to Visit Us now. Select everything after the first character. And before I start doing any more adjustments, I'm going to put in the placeholder text for the paragraph section. I'm going to speed this up now just so you don't have to sit and watch this. Okay, a little bit of formatting there, but we're now done, so I can save it once more. I'll use this as a heading. Again, same format, paste it after the first. And I'll probably start the paragraph with that. Should have done the same thing. We'll put this as the start of a sentence. I know that's not grammatically correct, but this is just placeholder content. So what I can do here is put this to a paragraph 1, just so we can go into the content that little bit easier. And here we can bring in another bakery photo. We'll go with this photo, just to offer something a bit different. So we've got some options here. We can go into the design settings, and I'm going to set this to fill, just to fill that layout. And what I'm also going to do is move this and make sure the text is centrally aligned so it fits with that image. Or another option, we can actually make the image a little bit smaller, which I might go for. So what I could do here is go for more like a 4:3 photo instead of perfectly square. Alternatively, I can bring it in. And I'm going to edit the section, and now let's adjust the gaps. So I'm going to go with a 30 pixel gutter between those sections. And I can adjust the gutter height to get it so it looks relatively square. Now I can set this back to center, and that works quite nice. So I'm happy with that. We've got nice equidistant spacing. Okay. I don't think I'm going to change the testimonials in this one It's more copy and paste, and I don't think we need to worry about that. Likewise with the key benefits. Again, it's easier just to entering after the first character. Remove that section. We can bring this up then. And now it'd be a case of just copying and pasting that content across, which again, I don't think I need to worry about this one. What I am going to do though is just put another photo in here. I will go through and just put in the remainder of the content. In fact, we'll probably sell this as a template on our store, but if you've got SquareForge, you don't need to worry about that. And I'm going to change the color of this footer section as well. Maybe, I don't know, not sure. Okay, we now have the outline structure of our template converted using SquareForge, and there'll be a few changes I would make with a little bit more time. But in just over half an hour or so, I've been able to get a look and feel that translates well across the site. We've got some elements that break it out of the Squarespace template and look unique, which I quite like. I think this section here, I'd probably get rid of the white lines. So this might just tweak it a little bit. Yeah, so I'd have to go through now and just change the colors back, which is a bit of a pain, but it gives me those darker lines in between each of the sections. What I'm going to do instead is add a block shape behind it, because this will stop us from having to redo everything. So I'm going to drag it in front to start with, across the full section. Then we're going to change the color to the darkest color. Just click off it and back on, and now we can move it right the way to the back. Just keep clicking it until that goes grayed out. And now we've added the block in behind, but we will have to fix this and go through the entire site on mobile view for the changes that we've made. But there we go. Our new fictional website. Hope you found this helpful. With SquareForge, there's limitless possibilities. That's why we use it in-house for all of our projects. And that's also why we try to keep it as low a cost as we can, so to get you up and running. To get using SquareForge, you've got two options. You can either join our Pixel Haze coaching community over on SKOOL with a K, and you get not only SquareForge, but any future upgrades as part of your membership. Or you can purchase it via squareforge.net for $297. But just bear in mind that if you sign up for 3 months on the community, you get SquareForge for free for those months. Once you purchase SquareForge once, you can reuse the template builder and duplicate it as many times as you want. And I've got startup tutorials to show you how to do exactly that. And we've really tried to make it as great value as possible. I'd love to hear what you think. Leave some comments. Would you have taken this design in this direction, or would you have tried something different? Also, have you been using SquareForge? And love to hear how you're getting on. I'm hoping to do a couple more of these tutorials with fictional designs in different industries, just so we can get a feel for how it all clicks together. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.